Hello world, it's me. I'm back. It's been a little bit, I know. I'm sorry. Welcome to Snap Together Sunday. Yes, Sunday, not Saturday, not Minipla Monday, Snap Together Sunday. Why? Because I have been busy trying to work on things, and then I had to sneeze. Excuse me. Been busy working on things, and then yesterday was busy. Next weekend will be blah, blah, blah. Next weekend will be busy as well. It's MomoCon, but I wanted to squeeze in here. I'll probably do a stream tonight and tomorrow. But yeah, so what I've got up tonight is, you may recall a couple years ago, one of the very first, I think maybe my first ever live stream, was a test stream building these guys, Lupinkaiser and Patkaiser. And his arm just broke off. Well, not broke. Well, there's a broken thing in there, but that's not what happened. Anyway, Lupinkaiser and Patkaiser. I built them. They're some of my first ever, well, literally my first ever straight Minipla build in 2020. When lockdown had started and I was... Anyway, built those. I have, of course, since expanded my collection, but I have not gone back to maybe they were my second Minipla builds, I don't know. I think actually Kira Major might have been my first Minipla. Anyway, I've obviously expanded my collection with miniseries before and after them, going back to Zyuohger, Q Ranger, Ryu Soldier, Kira Major obviously, Zenkaiger, Dawn Brothers, and now working on the current season, which is of course King Oger. But I have not. There's still some holes in my collection. I only had these two robots, so we're going to finish. I actually have ordered a few months ago. Actually, I think I might have ordered it last year. The remaining everything I need, everything that's left basically, except for the movie robot. So tonight we have the VS vehicles. I will switch my camera here. These do not combine into a robot on their own. They simply form armaments for the Lupinkaiser or Patkaiser formations. We have in order Cyclone Dial Fighter, Trigger Machine Biker, Scissors Dial Fighter, Trigger Machine Crane, and then the Cyclone, the Blade Dial Fighter and Trigger Machine Drill in the last box that are small, and those two go with the Scissors and Crane there. So that's what we're building tonight. Just some small stuff, and I will show you their combinations with Lupinkaiser and Patkaiser respectively, where applicable. I'm trying to think. I know in the series, Crane, let's see, after, I think they got Crane, but I think, well, no, I'm just trying to think which, because in the series they wound up giving everything to the Lupinrangers after a while, including stuff that was supposed to be for the Patrangers, but the Lupinrangers turned out to be much more popular. And so Bandai is like, oh shit, let's give them the cool stuff. So let's get into it. Alright, take a picture of the box, of course. I'm supposed to take a picture, whatever. Oh, let me show out the box real quick. So of course, each box has the highlights the component in question. In this case, it's the Patkaiser with the Cyclone Dial Fighter. The back is, of course, a montage of all the components. Tells you what you can do. Box 1 plus Lupinkaiser, box 2 plus Patkaiser, boxes 3 and 5 plus Lupinkaiser, boxes 4 and 5 plus Patkaiser. And then they're also compatible with the Narikiri VS Changer, which I do not have, do not ever plan to get. So that's a fun feature that I will not be looking into. And of course, these have had the candy removed. Soft plastic, interesting. A, B, C, and some stickers. Alrighty. Sure, I don't think I have my chat up. I don't have my chat up. I'm an idiot. Restream chat. If anybody's talking to me, I am not seeing it. I apologize. Let me pull up Restream chat. I doubt anybody is, but you never know. Let me just double check Twitch here. That's most likely to get comments. Whatever. If you've said anything the last, well, the duration of the stream, just go ahead and repeat it, because I do not know if you've said anything. Let me do a test. Yeah, that's showing up. Okay. All right, let's go get into this.
Apprentice Duelist. Not yet. Quiet chat so far.
Cool. I kind of figured, just because this was kind of last minute. Didn't really say much to anybody, but I just wanted to make sure. Okay. So with A6 and B6, as you can tell, this is the over and under of the jet. And then these pieces, 1 and 2. This is where the rotors are going to go.
Apprentice Duelist. For sure. Just popping in for a bit.
Always happy to have the pleasure of someone's company. Because otherwise it's just me talking to myself, and I don't like that guy. He's kind of crazy. Alright, it doesn't want to put stickers on yet. A5. It's a whole. It's gonna be a pretty quick build. A5, C1. These have soft plastic, the rubber plastic, or I don't know what that's called, which is an unusual, uncommon material choice for Minipla. And that's upside down, damn it. Doesn't really free spin. Was I supposed to put it any other way? Doesn't seem to. No, this would be the logical way. A8.
Apprentice Duelist. Haha, I always figure it's best to like yourself at least a bit. They're the person you spend the most time with.
That's fair.
Related question, how new is this set?
This is not new at all. This comes from 2018. I mean, I got it earlier this year, but it's a back older set, relatively speaking. Oh, now it wants me to put stickers on. 5 and 6. It goes where? 6 on this side. Guess that's correct. No, there we go. I see how it goes. Sometimes you just gotta use the stickers. And that's misaligned. Okay, that's one. Let's get the other one. Okay. Then it wants me to, I'm assuming, put this together. Shit. I'm lucky that didn't fly too far. And sticker, which sticker here? 2, it said? 7. Okay, that's more red. Oh, I see.
Apprentice Duelist. Nice recovery. Yeah, I feel the pain with pieces flying off.
I've had some stuff. I've come very close to losing parts before. So yeah, I'm glad that one just didn't go too far. So one time when I was building the MMPR Megazord, the saber-toothed tiger, piece flew off. I think it was one of the teeth. Flew off and went up on the other side of my kitchen. I was like, had to get help finding it. I could not find it. It went so far. Okay, slide these together. Got a nice double rotor going on there. Sort of the illusion that the cockpit extends around there, ruined by the other side being hollow. What can you do? And piece B4 is the underplate.
Apprentice Duelist. I assume the teeth weren't even bright yellow to be easy to see.
Nope, they were gray. It may have been a different part. I don't remember. It was something. Okay, that's the front half. Let's make the back half. A3 and A4. And A1 and A7. Okay, that's the A-frame done. Okay. That's the shoulder joint. That goes in the back. That's the elbow joint. That goes in the front. The hip bone's connected to the elbow bone, or something like that. I'm not a doctor.
Apprentice Duelist. So satisfying to finish a frame.
Really is. B5. Nice snap on there. Oh, it's got a notch out instead of an outward. Okay, that's interesting. And this goes on the underside. Okay. And there is the Cyclone Dial Fighter. Gimmick is the Cyclones can, if I can get this right, which one goes which direction? I'm supposed to, is that supposed to be there? Okay, you have to tab that out. Okay. They split, and they can go like that. They don't free spin very well. Looks like they're too tight for that. I don't think I have them backwards, so I have to couple more stickers, and I'll show you how it is supposed to combine with the robot. So what goes where? Sticker 3 and 4, no, 3 and 2, and then 4. Okay, I see. That's misaligned.
Apprentice Duelist. Good luck with your night, Kyuga. Catch you later.
Thank you very much. Have a great night. Check out the replay or something, or do whatever later. Have fun. Damn it. Well, let's go ahead and use this then. Wasn't gonna, but I guess I have no choice. Let me get some music on or some entertainment.
Yeah, Disney's never gonna live that commercial down. I'm not gonna let them. I refuse to let them live that down. I'm gonna play it every chance I get to when I'm talking about the Star Cruiser, and today, I am talking about the Star Cruiser. You know, I had a wonderful time this past week. I was enjoying a vacation at Walt Disney World. I was just, catching buses, riding monorails, flying aboard Skyliners, and you know what Disney decided to do? They decided to drop just a bunch of news the week I was gone. So I appreciate that, Disney. Thank you. I'm late. But I wanted to start with the Star Cruiser video, because we've sort of followed the construction, the concept, the opening, and then the subsequent following months of the Star Cruiser on this channel a little bit. I've talked about it, and now Disney announces that it is going to close permanently forever in September of this year. Now you gotta keep in mind, the Star Cruiser opened its doors on March 1st of last year. That makes its total operating time, the time it spent open, just over a year and a half, by like a couple weeks. For reference, Superstar Limo, which is widely regarded to be one of the worst Disney attractions of all time, lasted 11 months. And Journey into Your Imagination, also often regarded as one of the worst Disney attractions ever made, definitely the worst at Walt Disney World, was open for longer than the Star Cruiser, just a week and 2 years. So this goes down as one of those projects that Disney opened and then closed very, very quickly, like Superstar Limo, like Journey into Your Imagination. Although there is one key difference for the Galactic Star Cruiser, and that's that the Galactic Star Cruiser cost a lot of money. Not just to stay there, we all know it's crazy expensive to stay there, but also to build and operate. This wasn't cheap. Superstar Limo, Journey into Your Imagination, those attractions were built on the cheap, which is why they were so bad. Original DCA, right? Taking the figment out of Epcot, we hated that, we wanted it gone. But with the Star Cruiser, people seem to enjoy Star Wars. A lot of people like Star Wars. What went wrong? Now, right off the bat, you would say that the price is the most prohibitive part of this, and I would actually agree with you, but is it the reason that it failed? Maybe. Right now, the price for the smallest basic cabin that you can get for the voyage is $4,800. It's a lot for 2 nights. But that doesn't mean people aren't going to do it. And just looking for myself right here, even look, you can look too. You can see that just staying at the beach club itself it's $1,300, $1,200 to $1,200 for annual pass holders. That's less than half the price of the Star Cruiser for 2 nights. That's a fancy resort. It's a lot of money, but it's still not as much as the Star Cruiser. I think for a lot of the quote-unquote non-believers, the price point is what drove them off. Immediately with how much it cost, you were alienating probably about 80% of the people, maybe more, maybe a little bit less, who want to go. That's one aspect of it, sure, but that 20%, the leftover people who do have the money and do want to go, and actually do end up going to the Star Cruiser, you run into a bit of a problem. And this, I think, is the main reason why the Star Cruiser failed. There's not enough replayability. Think for a second about your favorite Disney attraction. Is it the Haunted Mansion? Maybe it's Pirates of the Caribbean, or Incredicoaster. Maybe like Kali River Rapids over at Animal Kingdom. All of those attractions have rewritability. You can go on them multiple times and get something new every single time you ride those attractions. That's why I ride Living with the Land over and over and over and over and over and over again. The Galactic Star Cruiser is the same story with the same story beats that carry out every single night. You can go down a couple of certain different paths, but for people who visited, who did go, I've talked with them. They said that it was a lot of fun, but you only really need to do it once. There's no inclination, no story thread that's grabbing you, pulling you back, making you want to go to the Galactic Star Cruiser again, and that's where they failed. It's so much money, and you do it once, and you're done if you do it at all. Drawing comparison to other fancy hotels on Walt Disney World property, like I talked about earlier, the Yacht and Beach Club. Very fancy, amazing swimming pool, delicious restaurants, and, most importantly, it is within walking distance from Epcot and Living with the Land. Okay, I'm done talking about it. Done talking about Living with the Land now. Still cheaper than the Star Cruiser, and depending on who you ask, a better value and a better experience all around. Another thing that sort of rubbed me the wrong way about the Star Cruiser was the introduction of aspects to the Star Cruiser, characters, droids, experiences, atmosphere, that were originally promised for Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, the land that everybody could access for the price of admission to a park. All of that was either drawn back, scaled back, or completely canceled in favor of doing it instead, maybe still not even up to the caliber they were promising for the land over at the Star Cruiser. And of course, you can't discount the bad word of mouth that the Star Cruiser got, okay? People who have been probably loved it and they thought it was great. That's fair. But the price point and all of the things that people from the outside were seeing, I can't tell you the amount of times I've seen people posting how they could go on a full week-long Disney cruise for less, or go to Disneyland Paris for less for a couple of days. Now, I have a couple more things I want to talk about in this video before we wrap it up. This is more than just me trashing on the Star Cruiser, right? I personally wouldn't have gone. I didn't end up going, actually. It's closing now, so I'll never get to go. But it just seemed like too expensive for me. I would love to see it. I'd love to experience it, but it's not going to happen. It's not in the cards. And honestly, I think that's for the best. But I do want to talk about what may end up happening to the Star Cruiser building, the actual hotel site that people stayed at. What is going to happen to that now that it's closing? And the most realistic possibility is that Disney's just gonna tear it down. They're just gonna completely demolish the entire thing, and it's just gonna become just some empty land or something, some other facility in the meantime. But you know, it is Walt Disney World, and they are absolutely infamous down there in Orlando at the Walt Disney World Resort for leaving things completely abandoned. River Country, Discovery Island, the Yeti in Expedition Everest, Cranium Command, the old Imageworks up in Journey into Imagination. There are so many things that Disney just sort of uses for storage, or just leaves abandoned and completely empty out there. I don't know why. Disneyland, I would like to think that they're using every square inch of storage they could, but I know there's some stuff in Tomorrowland that, you know, is sort of sitting there. You know, there's like people mover cars involved. Don't worry about it, it's not important. I've also seen some people float around the idea of turning it into a sort of bigger, less themed, less expensive, generic Star Wars hotel, and this is what I thought would be the better alternative to the Galactic Star Cruiser when they first announced it. But I don't think it's going to happen. The amount of money they would have to put into it, they would have to build a pool, a bunch more rooms, more facilities, and you would have to still staff the people to work the Star Cruiser. I'm not sure that Disney would get their money's worth back on that, so to say. They definitely weren't getting their money's worth on the Star Cruiser, that's why it's closing. And on the offhand on the chance that the Star Cruiser building stays up and it is not completely demolished, torn to the ground, I can see it being used as backstage area, administration buildings, maybe a car service center or something. It wouldn't be guest facing, is what I'm trying to say. But what's cool is if they do leave the building standing and change it into something else, the people working there, the people who do get to see the inside, will be able to see the remnants of the old Star Cruiser. You can't really just take things like this out. I mean, yeah, you could turn the lobby into a call center, but that door is still going to look like a Star Wars door. The stairs are still going to glow, and the hand railings are still going to be that industrial look. It's still going to be the Star Cruiser. I think they should do that. That'd be awesome. Now, there's one more thing I want to talk about before I start wrapping this whole shindig up, and that's that I don't want Disney to get the wrong idea about this Star Cruiser, okay? I don't want them to see this as a complete failure, because in many ways it wasn't. Hyper-immersive entertainment that sort of brings you into the story and lets you roleplay as a character in your favorite Disney worlds. That's good. A sort of all-inclusive land cruise that you can go on in addition to your Disney World vacation or Disneyland vacation. Good. Not being able to leave the Star Cruiser on your own accord for any reason. Not good. Only having one very, very tiny outdoor space you can go to if you want to escape the interior of the Star Cruiser. Very bad. No, wait, we're supposed to be counting the successes here. This was Disney's first shot at something like this. They swung and they missed, but I hope that they learned some lessons along the way. And I think building experiences like this into other hotels and even the parks would go a very long way. Just be conscious about the price point and what you're offering, because for a lot of people, it wasn't worth it. Do the Star Cruiser on a smaller scale. They went huge, and the budget, obviously, you could tell by looking at the concept art versus what we ended up getting, went down a little bit. I don't know if that was Chapek, I don't know if that was COVID, I don't know what that was, but build it well and build it for a bigger audience, dare I say everyone, and I think it would be a success. But I think that's about it for me. I've sort of said everything I wanted to say on the topic, and now the Star Cruiser will be relegated to the realm of abandoned and defunct Disney facilities? Hotel? It's a hotel, so it's not really a ride, so I guess Kevin Perger will probably have to handle this one in an hour-long video that makes people cry for some reason toward the end. Looking forward to that one. If anyone can do it, it's Kevin, and now I'm turning the question over to you. Do you think the Star Cruiser closed down because it was too expensive? Was it not worth it? Was it only worth doing once and then never again? Are they running out of people to experience this thing? I want to hear what you think down in the comments below, because the Star Cruiser discussions are always very important and very fun conversations conversations to have, because everyone has similar takes, but also wildly varying takes. Even people I've spoken with who went said it was amazing, it was great, but also, there's always an also. So, let me know down in the comments, because I want to hear what you have to say. I need it this time. Just getting back into the swing of things after getting back from Walt Disney World, so we will have that Haunted Mansion trailer video this week. I'm very excited, looking forward to that. And then just a couple in-park videos for the next couple of weeks after that. I won't be able to actually speak to make edited videos like this one for the next couple of weeks. So you will be getting in-park videos I have filmed previously. It's a whole thing, don't worry about it. But as always, everybody, this is sort of like the unofficial end card. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you all in the next video. If this is an unofficial end card, you know, check out the links in the description down below. Patreon, thank you all so much. All of my Patreon supporters, $1 a month, gets you access to most of the perks. See you all next week. I'll be here. I hope to see you here. Goodbye.
All right. This is, of course, a police vehicle, so it's, you know, black and white, and as the other VS vehicles are, as the other trigger machines are, it's mostly black with mostly white and black. The others have a supporting color. This one does not as much, so that's interesting to set it apart from them. Again, it's got a soft plastic
Warning,
frame for only one
this
part.
video is intended for adult collectors. It contains plastic collectibles, questionable opinions, and a man with far too much free time on his hands. This is not a test. This is a random review.
Before we begin, thank you very much to Retrax was a good figure, actually, for joining the Patreon campaign. And thank you for letting me say something ridiculous. It's always fun to start a video that way with a really random shout-out. Non sequitur. Makes for a really fun cold opening. So, thank you very much for your contribution. Thank you for making me say dumb things. So, we're going to get straight into it this time. You'll notice I have no face cam because I think I'm going to need the space on screen for this guy. So, if you've been watching my channel long enough, you know, I'm not the biggest third-party guy in the world. I've got a whole video that I have to make now, thanks to my lovely patrons on my top-tier levels, that I will have to re-evaluate my third-party stances for 2023. But for now, I'll tell you, I have been buying more lately than I used to, and one of the ones that I bought that I've been, like, super excited about is the TransArts Transmetals, and this Megatron I had to have. So, for context, Transmetal Megatron was my favorite Transformer growing up.
Valid.
Absolutely loved it. Spent the extra money to get the Japanese one as an adult because I wanted to be able to play with it without splitting in half. So, yeah, now I have this, like, the perfected take on it in Metal T-Rex. TransArts with not the most creative naming schemes, but hey, we know exactly what it is, right? So as you can see, this is an absolute mammoth Tyrannosaurus. I don't have it in beast mode, but I will show you the original Transmetal Megatron by comparison. Yeah, he's big. He real big. You know, I can do the tape measure thing, because I actually have one right here. Yeah, if I stretched out the tail, it'd probably be somewhere longer than about 17 inches. That's a big lizard. Friend is, I have friends now who are, like, big on dinosaurs who would get really mad at me calling it a lizard. Let's just put it that way. It is cast mostly in this brilliant copper metallic plastic, looking brilliant. You got the silver in the tail as well as the fingernails, a little bit of gunmetal here on the arms, and then yes, that vac metal purple that is lovingly placed across his body. The hips, the head, of course. The feet are actually not. The feet are, well, if you can hear this, the feet are die-cast.
Oh, shit.
So this thing's got some extra weight down at the bottom to help make poses stable, which is not a bad use for die-cast. There's times where, yes, the stuff is actually very useful. Yeah, it's just absolutely brilliant looking. It captures the original Transmetal Megatron so well. Man, I mean, absolutely phenomenal appearance. Now, as far as the original one goes, you'll remember the arms being exposed in the front of the chest. Here, they've added some panel work in order to tuck the arms away and make the T-Rex mode completely solid the way it looked in the cartoon. Now, I don't like how the panels connect personally. I feel like the connection on them is not that strong, but they serve the purpose and they hide the arms and make everything nice and solid, so I'll give them credit for that. And features on this thing, boy. So let me take a close-up tour of the head here, so you can really kind of see just like how detailed they got into this. Here, just the light so you can see the translucent red eye with the color behind it, so it doesn't look dead. I always like to see that. And yeah, there's a lot of really cool detail going on this figure. Check this out. So we'll get into features here. So the head turns this and that way, and it can also look left and right. Has some articulation here, so it can look up and down. Lots of range of posability that give him a little bit more personality when you pose him. And then,
time.
Opening up the mouth, all the teeth, which is all silver plastic, and then, yes, he even has a tongue that is individually hinged. Great little detail. Great little detail. You can do quite a bit with him. You do quite a bit with him. As far as other posability, the arms here are on universal joints at the shoulder, and then double hinge here at what would be the wrist, and then ball joints for the little fingers. So that's a lot of posability, considering the original were just like one static component. If we go down here on the legs, the knees still work, because like these are just the robot mode legs. You can also like splay them outward a little bit without breaking the transformation. To adjust that further, you have actual ankle tilt, even that still works in the beast mode. Absolutely great. And then we go to the tail. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 ball joint spots to make this tail very, very flexible. Listen to that. That's interesting. And then, of course, the tail also hinges open for the claw at the top. Absolutely perfect. Love how much posability you can get out of a T-Rex. Now, if you want the other features that this toy was known for, well, we've got those too, and we've upgraded them as well. So, if we flip out the dino feet, the roller skates are still a thing here.
Good.
They don't have a locking point, they are hinged, so you can actually have him pose in different ways. So you can actually just have them at the angle you want, as long as everything stays nice and tight. On mine, they're nice and tight, so I'm not too worried about it. Also, die-cast wheels. This thing actually rolls. And then, of course, the sides come up for his flight mode. On the other side as well. I don't know how well I can actually frame this. I will endeavor to do so. Make sure he's not going to fall over on me. So yeah, the flight mode from the original Transmetal is completely retained. Of course it is. Oh, but we're not leaving it at that. We can't leave it off at that, because they rotate now. So just like in the original series, he can actually angle his VTOLs. I love it. He roll. He's rolling. Yeah. It's a phenomenal piece. So, it looks fantastic. It does everything we could ever hope for it to do in beast mode. Can we do something with the robot mode? How does the robot mode look? Alright. Let's close up all this. We'll go ahead and get his rollerblades back in where they go. I'm going to try very hard to keep this in camera shot while I do this, but keep in mind, I'm having to stretch to reach. So this is going to be a bit of a test for me. First off, just like the original toy, we're going to come off and get the tail. The tail is now on this little spring hinge that you can pop off, like so. And we'll talk about this tail later, because guess what? We're not going to use it in robot mode. We'll explain that when we get there. For now, we're going to transform it a lot like the original toy. So we're going to start with this shell kibble, which I guess I should have... hang on. Hang on. There we go. I will say, like, one thing I did forget to point out is that there is an individual hinge here. If you do want to splay the legs out without breaking the shell of the, like, entirely apart, that will give you the room to do it. Alright, so, also, like, you know, it's just nice if you want the VTOL fans to look a little bit beefier, too. So, a little bit of extra option there. But for now, we're going to need them in more normal spots. Let's unclip everything. Let me see. Unclip everything here. Then this is all going to hinge out like so. Alright. Now, I need to get all of this undone. So, you can see this is all the new engineering. Where all this, like, armature and all these extra hinges are going to get Megatron's arms covered. Go ahead and split the armor on the back. We have room for all this to get out. Tuck the arms. For the shell kibble here, you should be, you can rotate it down to get it out of the way of the arms. We're going to deal with that here in a second. Go ahead and rotate them out like so. Works just like the original toy.
Okay.
It's just a lot bigger and beefier when you do it now. Go ahead and flip these down. Need those here in a bit. For now, okay, so we're gonna pull this down. There's a panel now, as part of the new transformation, that actually hides the back of the robot mode head in the beast neck. So even that was accounted for when they designed the toy. So, you need to make sure all this is tucked up really well. If the dino head is going to fit inside the back cavity, if I can get it to fit without breaking. It's hard. I'm trying to do this without looking. This is not helping. Alright. Tucked in like so. Then we can fold that flap down, just like that. This is going to start tucking into the sides.
Oh, okay.
Alright, so we get those out of the way. Alright, the midsection. So we know how this goes. This is a lot of spinning and twisting. So that piece, for starters, goes over there on one side of the hip. This piece stays where it is. Top of the torso has to rotate all the way around. Nice, solid, ratchety, clicky. Alright, once it's all in the spot you want, bring all of this up. Make sure this is all out of the way. You're going to bring that tab to connect into this clip. Make sure everything here is lined up. Like, you kind of have to push the new neck piece of the beast mode into the transmetal head in order to make sure there's enough clearance and make sure this lines up correctly. But once it does, you should be able to just work the dumbbell hinges and then just, should just be able to snap the whole thing together. There we go. It's a pretty tight clip. That's going to hold in nice and secure. Alright, I'm going to make sure all of these are plugged together. So, after that, that panel goes back down. Raise this up. Do what you will with the beast mode arms. Remember, they just kind of like hang off of his shoulders, the original toy. Make sure everything on the chest is nice and connected there. I'm going to adjust the wrists, which are very tight. And there. Now, I'm going to have to reframe this to get it into camera, but that's going to be the transformation for robot mode. Alright, now that gives us Metal T-Rex in robot mode. I am now very far away from him. This is going to become a struggle, but as you can see, it is mostly the original transformation. The T-Rex head's new articulation comes with some extra bells and whistles, as does the closed-up chest in the beast mode. But none of it really detracts from the toy itself, and it doesn't overcomplicate it, most importantly. Now, 90% of it is still the original transformation, and that's pretty much for the best because the original one did a really, really nice job. So, we can see that bronze, that the copper is still like real strong in this mode. I love how I've always loved how the colors were laid out on this toy. Looks absolutely fantastic to me. Yeah, a lot more black here given way. And then, yeah, the head sculpt, really, really nice on this one. Let's go straight into the head sculpt, shall we? Give you a closer look. So, I'm going to tell you a couple things here for the head, because a couple things got weird. So you'll see the nice reflective eyes that mine has. Those are stickers that are included, which give it the look of the eyes from the original cartoon. I kind of prefer that because the head actually does have a light-up LED gimmick. I didn't have button cell batteries, so excuse me if I don't demonstrate it, but typically the eyes that you get with this are clear, so or translucent red, so you can have the eyes light up. If you don't like how that looks, then you can sticker over them with the optional stickers they include. I love that they thought of that option for people like me that don't like translucent eyes. However, a friend of mine actually got a version that did not have translucent eyes, and the entire like circuit in the inside for the gimmick is gone. So he got one that there is no light up option. So I guess I'm demonstrating like the version, how the version 2 is, just by like not demonstrating the light gimmick. Yeah, but for whatever reason, yeah, that's a thing now. So yeah, again, I've always loved this Megatron design. I mean, I love how powerful it looks. The giant shoulders work really, really well for me. He's got a big old backpack, but the fact that it's this, the big turbines from his beast mode kind of makes me okay with it. He used it for flight in the show, too, in robot mode, so I always kind of use it that way, too, as a kid, even though it didn't angle the right way. But yeah, absolutely fantastic. There's so many little, like, accessory things. I think I want to show you the articulation right now, which we usually save it for last, but we got a lot of stuff more we can talk about. For starters, head rotates left and right just fine. It is a little bit limited, but for the most part, everything works well. A little bit of up and down motion as well. Shoulders are universal, and guess what? These not only hinge this way, they hinge this way. So you've got full range on these, and you can hear a detent in there too. So nice solid shoulders. Bicep rotation is so tight it can undo the transformation of the torso. Elbows are double jointed. You can get a full 180 degrees out of them. Wrist not only rotates but bends. And then you have the fingers. My God, the fingers. Ball joint, hinge, hinge, big hinge, 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 hinge. Almost entirely like individual fingers. Fantastic level of articulation. Great for just like subtleties. Great for like little nuanced poses for Megatron. Waist, obviously, like part of the transformation. Unlike the original, this one actually accounts for like keeping the waist joint intact, so all of that works fine. Universal hips. Again, there's a detent to them for security. Also a detent to the rotation at the thigh, the 90-degree knee bend, and then, yeah, there's also an ankle tilt for the feet, which gives you a ton of posability on this thing. Yeah. Now, I mentioned they were going for masterpiece quality on this. I think my one issue with the toy is that the head might be a little too large, just by like a small little smidgen. It might just be a little bit too big, but that might also just be me and my preferences. But for the most part, yeah, like absolutely fantastic. Alright, so what else can we do with this thing? Like I said, there's a lot of accessories. So, he does, of course, have his traditional weapon. This one has a weird way of working now. So in order to get this one to work, the hand has to be tucked up against the wrist, which is a little bit difficult to do. Okay, so there is a very specific angle that the hand has to be at in order to fit inside his big old weapon. So let's go ahead and attach that. You can attach it in both directions if you want the spine up or the spine down. So don't make an accuracy thing out of it. It's just an optional thing. But yeah, works pretty well. Fits in there nice and secure. It's two spring tabs that hold it in place against the wrist rather than holding it in like a 5mm peg or something. And yeah, it also like here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ball joints. Wait, what happened there? We lost a ball joint. Well, did you pay attention?
This is
Still
a
in frame.
piece.
The beast mode has a separate tail from the robot mode in order to make sure that this is all size accurate. So you're just looking at an extra tail for as an accessory weapon rather than this. This does unfortunately make him a bit of a part former, but at the same time there is a logic to this because this is way bigger than his tail weapon from the original cartoon. So that's the thing that TransArts does. They're not afraid to have like part form or replacement pieces for the sake of making it as cartoon accurate as possible. They do let this be a little bit practical, however, because inside the tail, we're going to see a few extra things that we have. So, for starters, you have these little pieces. Well, if I can actually pop them out, because there's a lot of little things in here. So we'll go ahead and pull a couple of these, and then pull a couple of these. Ah! They're stuck in there. Did not account for this. Alright. Just take 2 of them out. There's 4 in there, but we'll take 2.
That's a very
because these are kind of unassuming little sticks with ball joints on the end. So these are for his claws. So if you want to replace the claws up here, just pop the ball joints like so, then pop in these, and then you have the gun barrels that he actually used to try and shoot Primal when he came back in Coming of the Fusors Part 2. So he can actually do the shoulder gun thing that he had in that episode.
Nice.
That's a cool little inclusion. That's a cool little inclusion. We also have the alternate faces, which it's easy to just kind of pull apart, put that to the side, and then just, well, hang on. I need the whole face, actually. Hang on. Yes, give me your face. I need your face. So it does plug on like a lot of modern figures do. There's a hole in the front. You just kind of have to press it out of the helmet like so, and then pop in your replacement. And there we go. Ah.
Goes up there.
There we go. Now he's Angie Megatron. You got that now. We also have like the mid-monologue cocky kind of expression. I'm not a big fan of how this one looks, but you know, it is definitely there for a use. And then just plug this right back on, and we have a new look for Megatron.
The windshield. Okay.
Very, very nice. Very, very nice. We want a little bit more to do with him. There is more we can do with him. For starters, I'm going to open up the claw. The claw, you're going to spot this little port inside between the two. Because you also get a blast effect, which is specifically molded to fit around the claw, so it has more of like a visual energy burst look to it. It doesn't hold in place as much as I'd like to. It's not the tightest connection point. But when the claws are clamped down on it, it will generally hold its position, so you can have the blast effect going off. Incidentally, for the light-up LED gimmick, this is the wand, because this thing on the end is magnetic. So the idea is like you press it on top, and it'll make the connection and turn it on. But yeah, as you can see, that's not going to work on mine. So yeah, it's a nice little trick, just to make the LED gimmick as simple as possible while still kind of putting this weird little spin on it. Speaking of spin, I'm going to go ahead and disconnect this so it's a little bit easier for me to work with. Go ahead and pop the claw off completely, and then we'll swap it in with one last accessory. It's a very tight ball joint, apparently. It's the disc reader. So if you want to recreate the scene from... Oh, no. Stop it. You want to recreate the scene that made Ravage turn on the Maximals, here you go. It gets stuck a little bit. It's not the smoothest connection, but, you know, then again, it's not the smoothest piece in the world. Also, the projector flips up from the top, like a Polaroid camera. Yeah, it's a neat little trick. Kind of like I'm just a quick observation for Mystery Science Theater fans. Doesn't that look like Gypsy? This little thing I pointed out. Alright. Fine. But yeah, as you can see, there's a lot to this thing because, yeah, they tried to make a masterpiece Beast Wars toy in the Transmetal designs, and they're pretty successful. That is Metal T-Rex from Trans Arts. It is everything I ever wanted it to be. I love the original Transmetal Megatron toy. The fact that there is now this, like, perfected version of that toy is absolutely amazing to me, and I absolutely love it. This made me go in for Trans Arts a little harder than I expected to. So we might review those too, or when the new ones come out, we might review those. We'll see. But for now, thank you guys for watching. Hope this gave some insight on a pretty expensive but pretty impressive piece of Transformer engineering. It is a fantastic figure and a fantastic attempt at perfecting what I consider to be one of Beast Wars' best designs. So, I hope you enjoyed. Until next time.
Yeah, I guess I'll give Bardic to Pain. Pain, my #1 good best friend. You got this.
You're just basically like Caboose at this point.
Just
God.
oh, God. That's all right. Let's keep this pain train going. The Caboose is here.
Son of a no.
And yeah, you
Thanks,
get Bardic.
Tucker, I'm quitting.
Gauss, take 2 psychic damage.
Here are the trigger machines all together. Let's get Goody out here. I would use the Good Striker that I have been using for Patkaiser, but I don't have the face stickers on it, and it's more apparent when he's in Good Striker mode, so just gonna borrow you again. I'm technically only supposed to have one anyway, so it's fine. Here are our trigger machines and Good Striker. It's about the same size. Not jazzed that the siren on this one is a sticker instead of red plastic, but what you gonna do? Get him on his own. Then a group shot. All right. Just gonna leave these guys unassembled because I need them again in a minute. So back on here, here. The gimmick on this one is that the bike wheel would come out instead. So that's something. That was the gimmick. So again, it replaces the Trigger Machine Trigger Machine Sango as the right arm instead of the left arm on, because it replaces the girls first. That's basically what happens. I forgot the fake face.
ever looked at a rubber band ball and thought, I really want to buy that, but I don't have a use for it? I mean,
Dial
a
Fighter.
person only has so many things that need to be held together by a rubber band. What are you going to do with hundreds of them? Well, if you were anyone who was anyone in 2010, you bought those rubber bands anyway, except you bought them in colorful, overpriced packs of 12, and slowly amassed your own rubber band ball at home that you called your Silly Bands collection. Silly Bands first officially came about in 2009 after Robert Croak, distributor of the infamous Livestrong bands, saw someone else make them first. In 2002, a couple of Japanese designers molded rubber bands into animal shapes to discourage people from throwing them away so frequently and increase sustainability, calling them animal rubber bands. Robert saw this idea on a business trip, decided the bands were pretty poorly made and didn't really resemble animals very closely, and then made his own version years later. This new idea, though, wasn't about the sustainability of office supplies, but dealt in children's fashion. Silly Bands were made of silicone instead of rubber, used generally sharper designs, and were marketed as a wearable accessory. No matter how you wore them, stretched them, or shaped them, Silly Bands would always snap back to their original shape. It didn't take long for Silly Bands to take off, gaining popularity by 2010 for their cute designs as statement pieces. There were Silly Bands for everything, from baseball to Arctic animals, princesses to rock and roll, Christmas to the original animal rubber bands designs that Robert Croak criticized? No, that must just be my imagination. The bracelets became so popular that officially licensed Silly Bands were eventually made of popular franchises, including such 2010 classics as Angry Birds, iCarly, and Farmville. Even a couple of celebrities joined in, with the Kardashians and Justin Bieber collaborating to create their own exclusive packs. The most popular packs, according to a good guess by Robert, were the Princess, Rock, and Hello Kitty packs. The brand had such success that more accessories like rings, necklaces, and even stickers were put out into the world. What's your favorite Silly Band? Oh, my favorite is shaped like a crab, but I don't like the bracelet. I only like the sticker of the bracelet. Rip-off brands like Logo Bands, Zany Bands, and Googly Bands were popping up everywhere to try and cash in on the sudden success. Given that they were marketed towards kids, it's no wonder that tons of children with their collective millions of Silly Bands just couldn't get enough. Plenty of middle and elementary schools were filled with kids trying to shove their boring baseball Silly Bands off onto some unsuspecting kid, trading for something way cooler and rarer. Now, I don't remember the Silly Band craze overly well, but I do remember that it just sort of appeared out of nowhere, and given that packs were relatively cheap compared to other toys and trends, pretty much every kid had them. They infiltrated my school so quickly that it was hard to keep up with the Silly Band's trading market. When I think about it, though, I don't think there actually was any agreed-upon value for certain Silly Bands over others. Glow-in-the-dark and glittery bands were popular, but were they actually harder to find? Did I trade half of my collection for the super rare man rocking out on guitar Silly Band that I also could have just bought at the local Walgreens for $4? Though kids making stuff up and cheating someone else out of a valuable item has been around since kids' collectible toys were first introduced. Probably since some children in the Middle Ages were trading sticks and little Emmeline told Beatrice that her stick was worth way more than those other flimsy twigs. Trading became so popular that at a lot of schools, Silly Bands were eventually silly banned for their controversy, causing arguments over trading deals, collections getting mixed up or lost, and just generally being a classroom distraction. I remember the day that announcement was made at my own school, and feeling pretty disappointed that my dozens of Silly Bands, this new trendy item that was pretty much only good for showing off to other people, now wasn't even allowed in the main place I frequented as an 11-year-old. If you couldn't bring your Silly Bands to school, though, how could you get your fix? By playing with the next best thing. Your virtual Silly Bands in the coveted video game titled simply Silly Bands for the Nintendo DS. Released in 2011, Silly Bands the video game was published by Zoo Games, now named Indie Pub, who also published renowned classics such as Chicken Blaster and Eminem's Beach Party. The game functioned as an Angry Birds clone, except everything about it was worse. I guess it didn't set up players to expect much when its tagline was just, "Play the craze." A pack of exclusive video game themed silly bands was included with the game, which was probably its main selling point. Another game titled Silly Bands the Game was also released for mobile devices and played a lot like those mobile games you see in all the weird ads everywhere now. The ad for the game claimed that you would join Stella the puppy in a Silly Bands themed adventure, though I don't see anything to do with her in the gameplay it shows, so that's kind of a letdown. Despite producing such quality games, it doesn't seem like anything could stop the fall of Silly Bands. Just as quickly as they had been bought out of stock from every retailer that carried them, the fast fashion trend of silly bands developed into nothing more than an early 2010s memory. I remember finding my own collection after years of them not being touched, all tangled together in a big colorful mess, and donating them to a local garage sale or something. I hate to think it, but I was probably among the few people that even bothered donating. Despite the intention of the original design of the Japanese animal rubber bands, I have a feeling once they weren't in style anymore, most people likely just tossed their silly bands in the trash when discovering their hoard of them years later like I did. So much for encouraged sustainability. It's not like Silly Bands is to blame for its fall into obscurity though, right? Such is the life cycle of any trend. They come, they go, they die. Or so we thought? In the past few years, silly bands have been the topic of some nostalgia bait, with people making posts reminiscing the 2010s and asking, does anyone remember silly bands? Which, of course, unless you were living under a rock, you probably do. Nostalgia bait isn't anything new. It plays to people's nostalgia for likes and views, making memes or other content revolving around sentimental things from days gone by. According to the About section on the official Silly Bands website, and an article posted to the blog section of the same site, silly bands are officially gaining popularity again. I mean, it wouldn't be the first time that social media has brought old trends back into style. But what if most of the people talking about silly bands aren't actually reminiscing, but trying to restart the brand themselves? The earliest TikTok on the official Silly Bands business account, Silly Bands Online, was made back in November 2019. I don't really get it, but harmless content, right? Since this first TikTok, the Silly Bands Online account has posted over 1,000 videos, all about silly bands. And it's not just nostalgia bait that's being posted, but pretty much any kind of video to be made that can somehow incorporate the bracelets. Among obvious promotional videos and giveaways, there's also ASMR. Cooking recipes. Send this to your crush memes. Dog videos, oddly satisfying videos, the list goes on. There are some real standouts among their hundreds of videos though. There's a Silly series, which follows two of the self-proclaimed Silly Bands girls as they go to different public stores and try to trade silly bands for something free.
You guys trade silly bands for freezes? Will you trade me a freeze for silly bands? You will? Perfect. These are Kim Kardashian ones, so hold on to these. Alright, have a good one. Yeah, baby! Free freezes!
Okay, let's figure this up real quick.
Yeah, this series is Silly Girls, but I think you mean it in a different way than I do. In most of the videos, as you might expect, the already poorly paid workers that have to put up with this aren't really interested in dealing with the Silly Bands girls, especially when they notice that they're filming. Some of the employees just give in, seemingly to get these people out of their line, or because, as this Silly Bands boy puts it, she was too scared to tell me no. In some of the other videos, and I hate that they did so many of these, it seems like they probably told the workers what they were doing in advance and staged the video for better content. The worst part of this Silly series is that the creators actually challenged other TikTok users to do it themselves, calling it a challenge to harass minimum wage workers and beg for free stuff. Apparently, if you participated in the challenge, you could win cash prizes, Annie Energy, an energy drink partner with the company, or rare silly bands. Totally worth ruining some poor fast food worker's day. Fortunately, when searching under their Silly Series hashtag, the only videos of people doing the challenge were from the Silly Bands account themselves, with just one video that was apparently done by a fan that's also clearly staged. Although I think the silly series might be some of the cringiest videos on the account, there are definitely some runners-up. Take this video where a grown man narrates a Pikachu doll for some kind of silly bands content.
Pika, what's wrong? Pika, 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 Pika! You don't have any silly bands! Pika? Pikachu!
These young girls being told to say that their hands are ugly until they wear silly bands, which is just wrong for a lot of reasons. And multiple videos showing how easily broken silly bands are, again, under the guise of being relatable. And again, this just makes me feel sad for the original Animal Rubber Bands creators who just wanted people to stop treating rubber bands as disposable. Instead, they ended up fueling corporate greed through a stolen idea that's easily breakable and designed to be a fad that ends up getting thrown in the trash. There's even a few videos about how relatable it is to want to wear so many silly bands that it cuts off the circulation to your hands, which, aside from not being relatable at all, is just blatantly glossing over the fact that there was a case where a 4-year-old was wearing so many silly bands that they made his hand swell, cut into his skin, and caused him to bleed. I'm not saying that the Silly Bands team is directly to blame for this, but considering that this kid was probably not the only case of this happening, I just find it kind of icky to turn this into relatable content. What's arguably even worse than the cutting off your circulation jokes, though, is this video posted in October of 2020.
There is a new virus going around. And I think I already have it. I have like all the symptoms. It's called SBS, Silly Bands Syndrome. It literally says pandemic, and there's no cure. I mean, I guess if I'm gonna die, I'm gonna look good while doing it.
Yeah, that was pretty bad. Obviously, the video is just cringy in general, but I'm sure I don't need to get into why it's gross to compare Silly Band Syndrome to a virus that even this girl herself acknowledged as deadly. And I'm also sure that plenty of people made tons of jokes pretty similar to this, and if you really wanted to reach, you could even say that this is how some people coped with the stress of 2020. I just don't find it appropriate at all, though, for a brand to be posting this as a way to try to garner success and revive a product that already fell out of relevancy a decade ago. So, cringy TikToks aside, what else is Silly Bands doing as a brand to try and fuel their own revival? Well, for starters, getting influencers to become affiliates so they can create even more TikToks for them. Once making a purchase, only then will you be prompted to be able to register as an affiliate. You won't get free Silly Bands unless you already have at least 50k followers, if that's what you're after, but you can earn up to 14% through commission on each sale. I'm gonna be honest, I don't know anything about business deals and public relations, but isn't 14% kind of a weirdly specific number? Like, why 14? Also, 14% of the cost of a regular pack of Silly Bands is only 55 cents, so do with that information what you will. In addition to searching for affiliates, Silly Bands has already partnered with a group of influencers in yet another attempt to revive the brand. Sway House, a team of teenage boys that make quality TikTok content, quote, made a big investment in Silly Bands, making it their first stake in a company acquired as an investing group. With an official stake in the brand, which for online non-entrepreneurial types like myself, basically means that they own a percentage of the company, this seems like the perfect way to market towards a younger audience, especially fans of the Sway Boys. Oh, well, that's not good. For all my non-entrepreneurial types out there, I don't really know what this means for their partnership. What I do know, though, is that there hasn't been any talk about it since they invested, and as far as I can tell, Silly Bands have not taken off again, despite what Robert and his Silly Bands girls would have you believe. So maybe the Sway House deal didn't pan out how they expected it to, and maybe all of their TikToking isn't gaining them as many views as they thought it would either. There's still one surefire way to make money, promote the brand, and that everyone will love. Do like a charity partnership or something? No, stupid. Make a Silly Bands NFT. In January of 2022, Robert Croak, infamous Silly Bands creator, announced the launch of Silly Bands NFTs, which feature a shape from the specified Silly Bands collection, as well as an accessory and a custom background. With the purchase of an NFT, you'll also get benefits like free Silly Bands, free shipping on Silly Bands purchases, and eventually, metaverse wearables functionality. Just what I always wanted! Their NFT website claims that every NFT was painstakingly thought out and designed by our in-house creative team with rarity and collectability in mind. Yeah, I can see the painstaking creativity in this plankton from SpongeBob silhouette. As Silly Bands grow in worldwide popularity and the exclusivity of this small collection reaches the masses, it will surely drive up the desirability and prices. There they go again, self-proclaiming their supposed growing popularity. I think Robert watched too many manifesting tutorials while he was busy on TikTok. From their FAQ, it seems like the price ranges from what is currently $87 to $100 worth of cryptocurrency. I don't know anything about NFTs except that they make me feel like I need to go wash my hands, so let me know if that seems like a good price for Plankton. Speaking of Robert being busy on TikTok, I feel like this is a good time to touch on his own personal TikTok account that's filled with classic entrepreneur posts, giving financial advice, tips on how to become wealthy that don't include selling a viral phenomenon, and calling out Elon Musk directly for manipulating the market. Should we tell him that the ad doesn't work and Elon isn't listening? I'm a long way from Silly Band's TikTok. So, are Silly Bands making a comeback?
No.
If you ask Robert and the Silly Bands girls, of course they are, and you should buy ASAP. If you ask pretty much anyone else, no? I do scroll past the occasional non-sponsored, non-branded, nostalgic Silly Bands post, but I also see those for things like that green ketchup they used to make, and I don't think that means that people want it back or that it'll be in stores again soon. Robert Croak seems to be just another money-hungry entrepreneur type that thinks they can relive their best invention, dates younger women, and is grumpy with Elon Musk. He really believes with enough forced promotion and harassment of fast food employees that Silly Bands will make a comeback, despite the fact that he mostly just got lucky with the idea. But obviously, I'm just a simple consumer, so don't take my word for it. If NFT Silly Bands Plankton, I can't believe that's a coherent phrase, ends up taking off, then I guess I'll see you in the metaverse, or whatever.
Okay. So, I should hold off because scissors and blade go together. I'll use Lupinkaiser here to demonstrate real quick. So this one, it's meant to do like a yada yada yada, but you can also attach it like this. As an arm, and then hold the thing up as a shield, and then you use blade as a sword, and yeah, that's the gimmick for that one. Start getting some stuff hither. All right. And once I get a group shot, let's get my group shot here. Play this easy to transform. So there's all the dial fighter so far, with one more to go. Ish. Right, on to Trigger Machine Crane. What do I want to watch next? No, that's what I just watched. Literally just watched that one. Let's take a look at Mantis.
When it comes to members of the Guardians of the Galaxy, Mantis ranks up there as one of my favorites. But here's the thing, she is a terrible and annoying character in the comics. What's interesting is that her creator Steve Englehart wanted Mantis to be one of, if not the most important character in the Marvel Universe. You heard me right, Mantis of all characters is supposed to be the center of everything. The reason that never happened, though, is because she was so widely disliked that no other writer wanted anything to do with her. But that didn't stop Steve from trying his best anyway by shoving her into every single book that he possibly could, going so far as to put her in comics at completely different companies without any approval from Marvel.
Wow.
Hello and welcome to Comic Drake, where I talk about comic books and my name is Drake. Let's talk about it. Mantis made her first appearance in Avengers number 112 in 1973, and was created by Steve Englehart and Don Heck, but mostly Steve Englehart. She was the girlfriend of Swordsman, a failed supervillain that fled to Vietnam and spent his days drinking away in a depressed stupor. It's here that he met a prostitute named Mantis, who helped Swordsman get back up on his feet and became his lover. By today's standards, this origin story can come across as demeaning and stereotypical, but considering that the United States had just pulled out of the Vietnam War earlier that year and the country was known for the large sex industry that popped up during it, it's not all that surprising that this was the backstory that she was given. Though, to give credit where credit is due, Steve Englehart really seemed to care about empowering Asian characters in comics, having been the creator of Shang-Chi, and also portraying Mantis as more than capable of taking care of herself through her martial arts and empathic abilities. Mantis made herself known to the Avengers by helping the Scarlet Witch take down a bunch of robo-racists that were harassing her over dating the Vision. After their team up, the two walk on over to the Avengers Mansion, but Captain America is justifiably pissed off that this unauthorized person was allowed to walk into their headquarters with no questions asked. And those concerns were pretty warranted, since Mantis let the swordsman follow right behind them, and he's like, "Hey guys, real sorry about trying to kill y'all a bunch, but can me and my girlfriend join your team?"
No, absolutely not.
Sure, sounds good.
The swordsman deserves another chance.
Remember, Captain, we are the Avengers, not the Revengers. Fine, I guess I'm outvoted. I also like that during this whole exchange, Iron Man's helmet has an itty-bitty little smile. Now that they're members, Mantis kisses every single man on the team, except for Black Panther. Look, times were different, but it's a real shame because the first interracial kiss in a mainstream comic wouldn't happen for another 4 years when Iron Fist and Misty Knight lock lips. Even a little peck here would have been a really progressive move and could have easily been gotten away with, because once again, she kisses every single other man on the team. But why do that in the first place? See, Englehart deliberately created Mantis to be a femme fatale that would try to seduce all of the men and sow chaos within the group. And boy howdy did she start real quick about sowing chaos, because she summoned the evil lion god of Wakanda, who the team had failed to defeat just 2 issues prior. Acting as the god's crony, Mantis single-handedly took out both Thor and Captain America during the fight, and this is with 0 godly power-ups or anything like that. It is her pure natural strength. Ultimately, though, she and Swordsman double-crossed the god and helped the Avengers contain it once and for all, claiming that the deception was necessary to help take him down, but Cap was skeptical nonetheless. Mantis being this absurdly powerful is just one of the many ways that she is presented as the perfect human being, and that is not hyperbole. She is literally described as such in a later issue. During this time, Steve Englehart was also writing the Defenders comic, and came up with the idea to have his 2 teams fight each other. But I'm gonna spare you the details about that crossover, because frankly it doesn't matter in terms of the in-character history of Mantis. The long and short of it is that Loki and Dormammu manipulated both teams into building a big evil fleshlight for them. But this event was significant because it radically changed the course of Mantis' entire character moving forward, marking the turning point of Englehart becoming fully obsessed with his creation, and essentially turning the Avengers comic into Mantis and Friends.
I wanted someone to shake up the Avengers, so I came up with a femme fatale. But right after I did, I also came up with the Avengers-Defenders clash, and I needed to use my femme as a solid team player, not a disruptor. I found that interesting, a character I'd created for a purpose who now had no purpose. And as a young writer exploring my parameters, I started letting her tell her own story. Meaning every issue I'd tell my overall Avengers story with my various character developments, and then things would happen that she had to react to.
The Avengers ended up fighting an evil team, which led to Mantis getting injured. And while in recovery, the group realized that they don't actually know anything about her. So they asked Swordsman, "Hey, what's her deal?" And he replies, "Ah, shit guys, you know what, I never actually asked her anything about herself." Though once she's up and at him again, Mantis comes to help out her teammates, but is confronted by the villain Libra, who reveals that he is actually her father. He was a soldier in Vietnam that had a kid with a local, but the lady's brother didn't approve and tried to kill them. Libra and his daughter fled into the jungle, and they came across a temple. This was the home of the priests of Palma, outcast members of the alien Kree race who took the child in. As she grew up, Mantis was trained in the ways of martial arts by the priest, and was also worshipped by them, because she was prophesied to be the celestial Madonna, who would one day give birth to the Messiah of the universe.
What the fuck?
Though she doesn't actually remember anything about that, because the priest had mind-wiped her, so she could learn about humanity by living amongst normal everyday people. After that exposition dump revealed that her entire life was a lie, Mantis fell into a blind rage, and it took all of the Avengers at once to restrain her, and she defeated them all at the same time, because remember, she is apparently the strongest Avenger. When the dust settled, Mantis lost interest in Swordsman, probably because he never actually asked her anything about her personal life, and she started to play homewrecker with Vision, since his girlfriend was busy with her new magic teacher. Now, Mantis already wasn't subtle about her intentions, but when she straight up told the Swordsman that she didn't love him anymore, Mantis immediately walks over to Vision's room to try to seduce him. She pulls Vision in for a kiss, saying, "As an empath, I know you want me." And then Vision basically replies, "Then as an empath, you should have sensed how much I didn't want to hear that." But before she could reply, Kang the Conqueror shows up out of nowhere.
What?
He knows all about the prophecy and has narrowed down the location of the Celestial Madonna to the Avengers Mansion. He really wants to be the Messiah's father, so he kidnaps all the women in the house in an attempt to hedge his bets and impregnate them all at once. That's fucked up. Kang gets his ass handed to him, and in the process, it's revealed that Mantis is the one true Madonna. But in a final gambit, Kang declares that if he can't be the Messiah's father, then no one can. But before he could land the killing blow, Swordsman jumps in the way and dies in his ex-girlfriend's stead. This is all super tragic and everything, but at the funeral, the narration box straight up called Swordsman a lifelong loser. The Avengers bury their fallen comrade at the temple where Mantis was raised. But, get this, he's resurrected as a goddamn tree person. So, the priests of Hama were guardians of the Kotati, an alien race of tree people that their ancestors had tried to wipe out thousands of years ago. The tree man said that it is his destiny to father the Messiah, and since she can't fuck a tree, he reanimated her dead boyfriend's corpse and put his brain into it. Luckily, Mantis was into it, and the two of them decided to get married right then and there. But a few hundred feet away, Vision proposed to Wanda, and when they came over to announce their news, the whole team is like, hell yeah, double wedding. Immediately following the ceremony, Mantis and the tree dude abandoned their physical bodies to go have soul sex out in space, thus completely defeating the need for him to have reanimated Swordsman's corpse in the first place. Whatever, end of story. Steve Englehart ended up leaving Marvel a few years later in favor of DC Comics, and allegedly a fan came up and said, wait, since you're not at Marvel anymore, does that mean that we're never going to see Mantis again? And Steve replied, I got you, bro, and he made the completely 100% original character, Willow. She's an empathic martial arts master that is pregnant with the Messiah of the universe, and she also has the exact same unique speaking pattern as Mantis. She's also green now. Why? It is never explained. She only appeared in this one issue, and it really wasn't all that big of a deal, and there wasn't anything special about it. But because he had gotten away with it once, Englehart was determined to do it again.
I had a lot of fun with that Justice League story where this alien woman shows up and says, I can't tell you where I come from, I can't give you my history, but here I am. And that was fun. So I said, well then, I'll put her into everything that I ever do.
When Steve went over to Eclipse Comics to create his book Scorpio Rose, you better believe that Mantis was brought along for a cameo. Now going by Lorelei, she's just a green MILF raising her space son in the suburbs. The name of her neighborhood? Willow Mantis Heights. Again, she just appeared in one issue, and when Englehart returned to Marvel, he brought his favorite girl back with him. What's interesting, though, is that the company completely acknowledged the character's non-Marvel appearances, and officially listed both Willow and Lorelei as aliases for Mantis in her entry in the official handbook of the Marvel Universe. When Mantis came back to Marvel, she kept her green skin, but the official explanation is that when she had her son through the soul sex, she grew a plant body so that she could have a physical womb. Flashback to the Scorpio Rose cameo, confirming that she raised her son on Earth for a little bit, but then we find out that the Kotati requested him to come live with them, thus freeing up Mantis to go to space and have an interplanetary hot girl summer. Basically what happened is that as soon as Englehart got his hands on the Silver Surfer comic, he broke up the Surfer and his longtime lover to have him start dating Mantis 2 issues later.
Wow.
By the way, this is the same woman that the Surfer gave up his life to protect by becoming the Herald of Galactus. Fortunately, this didn't last too long, because a bunch of evil dudes captured both Mantis and his ex in exchange for the Infinity Stone that he had. The Surfer made the trade, but when he touched the bubble that contained the 2 women, it exploded, and he was only able to save his ex. Oh, but don't think that was the end of Mantis, because if Steve is writing a book, you better believe that she'll be coming back and then shoved right into the center. This time, it was in the West Coast Avengers, where she woke up back in the suburbs with no memory of anything that happened before she fucked off to space with the tree dude. Oh, and instead of being freaked out that she now has green skin, we learn that she can revert back to her original skin tone anytime that she wants. Not knowing what to do, Mantis sought out the help of the West Coast Avengers, who drop everything that they're doing to help her. The team takes her to the temple where she was raised in order to find clues, only for Swordsman to come back to life and kill her. Alright, so try to follow me here. As soon as she's stabbed, Mantis, but in a different body, rose up from a nearby grave. Because it turns out that when she was partying with the Silver Surfer and got blown up, her spirit came back to Earth because her real body was in suspended animation ever since she left to go have soul sex. And at long last, she's actually returned back to normal. Got it? Too bad, because that's retconned later, so none of that matters. Over the next year, Mantis would make several small appearances in the other Marvel books that Englehart was writing. But when she reunites with the Surfer, Mantis essentially killed herself so that her soul could go back to drifting through space. This was one of the last things that Steve did before leaving Marvel yet again. It's as if he said, fine, I'm leaving, but I'm taking my fantasy girl with me. Though, surprisingly, Englehart didn't use Mantis in more of his non-Marvel work at the time, and instead, she made an appearance in the infamous storyline Avengers: The Crossing. The book was dogshit, and a lot of the heroes are drastically written out of character, with Mantis now being the wife of Kang the Conqueror. You know, the dude that kidnapped and tried to sexually assault her. We really don't need to talk about that book, though, because it was so widely hated that it was retconned to oblivion, with it being explained that that Mantis was actually an imposter. But you know what's funny? This was the first time that anyone other than Steve had written his precious character, and it was a major reason why he came back to Marvel once again.
Tom Brevoort came to me and said, "People have really screwed up since you left. What's happened to Mantis has not been done very well. I'd like you to come back and write what turned out to be Avengers Celestial Quest, which is where you can, really establish who she is and what she's supposed to be." So, okay, I did that.
Avengers Celestial Quest. This book sucks too. It is once again another comic that revolves around Mantis, and we found out that when she exploded in the 80s Silver Surfer comic, she had actually shattered into multiple phantom forms that faded from memory as soon as she left. This was basically an explanation as to how she could appear in every single book that Steve was writing at the time, sometimes at the same time, and why nobody remembers her or references her. It's not because she was an insufferable character that nobody liked or wanted to write. It's because she was actually 5 ghosts. Thanos is going around killing these phantom forms, which fuses her back into one being, and to save herself from complete annihilation, she meets back up with the Avengers. Mantis gives a recap of her whole life story in order to bring the readers back up to speed. Though I will say, one thing that I do like is that when we go back to the Scorpia Rose flashback, her neighborhood is called Willomantic this time. It's a little less on the nose than Willomantis, and I appreciate it. I also just love this panel because her kid, who we now know is named Sequoia, just looks like a small man. He straight up looks like he has a desk job, 3 kids, and plays pickleball on the weekend. Speaking of, the kid has grown into an angsty teenager, and Thanos wants to kill him as well, so it's up to Mantis and the Avengers to fly to the Kotati homeworld in order to protect him. On the flight over, Mantis found out that Vision and Scarlet Witch had broken up, so she makes a move and the two start hooking up, all while Vision's ex-wife was less than 100 feet away. Really, though, that's all the details that are worth mentioning here. Celestial Quest is yet another inconsequential comic that is almost never brought up again, and at the end of the book, everything is set back to the status quo with Mantis leaving the Avengers, and comics as a whole for about another decade. Basically, the entire point of this comic was to entice Steve Englehart to come back to Marvel for a little bit by letting him write about his waifu. Mantis eventually made her return when Marvel decided that the cosmic side of their universe needed to be a bigger part of their comics, and editor Andy Schmidt wanted to use this as an opportunity to bring back some long-forgotten characters.
I'm a really big fan of taking characters that aren't widely considered cool and bringing them back. If you don't know these characters already, but you want to like them, that's how I felt, then I think this is the right place for you. If you're an old-time fan of these characters, then this should be great for you too. They've been so underused of late. I think they'll play well for everyone.
And you know who weren't considered cool? Characters like a big tree monster, a talking raccoon with guns, an earthling space adventurer, and of course, Mantis. Because of these characters' unpopularity and obscurity, the writers were able to more or less alter them however they wanted, and Mantis was arguably the most reworked. She lost the ability to change her skin color, so now she's just straight up green. Also, instead of them being strands of hair or part of a headband, Mantis's antennae were completely attached to her head with no given explanation. On top of that, she is a significantly more powerful telepath, and gained the abilities of pyrokinesis and future vision. All of these rejuvenated space characters found themselves in a Kree prison, and are recruited by Star-Lord to take part in a special task force to take on an invading techno-organic species. In order to stay invisible to the enemy, the strike force needed to be technology-free, which makes it great that Mantis relied solely on mental powers and martial arts. After the war, the unit proved to be a great asset, which is why most of its members immediately turned around and formed a brand new group that was dedicated to taking on galactic-scale threats called the Guardians of the Galaxy. That being said, Star-Lord wanted to assemble the team as fast as possible, so he had Mantis psychically manipulate everyone's minds so they were more likely to come along, which was set up nicely because Mantis was seldom out in the field. She instead stayed back on the ship, handling communications, intel, and essentially acting as the group counselor. However, when the team heard about Mantis' mental meddling, many of the members left. But that really doesn't matter too much because the Guardians disbanded shortly thereafter when Star-Lord seemingly died. Of course, though, this is comics, so when he came back from the not dead, Star-Lord reformed the Guardians. But Mantis was nowhere to be seen. She only popped up to help for like a couple of pages, but that's about it. And then she eventually showed up for a couple more pages as a member of a team that was made up of other former Guardians. But again, that was it. Now, I'm sure there might be some of you guys that are wondering, well, what happened to her kid? Isn't he supposed to be this big messiah of the universe? So, after not appearing in the comics for about 2 decades, Sequoia came back with a massive glow-up. He's turned the Kotati into a warmongering race that is trying to get revenge on the Kree by straight up killing all animal life in the universe, which is a bit of an overcorrection. The Avengers call in Mantis to try to talk some sense into her son, but that doesn't work, leading to a massive and bloody conflict that ended with Sequoia being locked up, and Mantis once again not having a place in the world. That's why she's back as a supporting member of the Guardians of the Galaxy, where she fought a plant monster that is actually a secret 6th Phantom form that Thanos didn't kill and that nobody knew about. The story literally exists just so that she can absorb the Phantom into herself and revert to her original skin tone to look more like her MCU counterpart. And guys, the story literally exists wondering, well, what happened to her kid? Isn't he supposed to be this big messiah of the universe? So, after not appearing in the comics for about 2 decades, Sequoia came back with a massive glow-up. He's turned the Kotati into a warmongering race that is trying to get revenge on the Kree by straight up killing all animal life in the universe, which is a bit of an overcorrection. The Avengers call in Mantis to try to talk some sense into her son, but that doesn't work, leading to a massive and bloody conflict that ended with Sequoia being locked up, and Mantis once again not having a place in the world. That's why she's back as a supporting member of the Guardians of the Galaxy, where she fought a plant monster that is actually a secret 6th Phantom form that Thanos didn't kill and that nobody knew about. The story literally exists just so that she can absorb the Phantom into herself and revert to her original skin tone to look more like her MCU counterpart. And guys, that's where we're at the time of this recording. The worlds of Marvel and DC Comics are full of great characters, and while sure, we have gotten some great adaptations, the comics still have some of the best stories. However, for characters like Mantis, the adaptation is leaps and bounds better. The funniest thing about Mantis is that Steve Englehart tried his absolute hardest to make her the next big thing, but she was so wildly unpopular that no other writer wanted to touch her, and it's because of that unpopularity that she got completely reinvented and given a second chance in the Guardians of the Galaxy. So at long last, she is a household name, but not because of anything that Steve Englehart did. It's painfully ironic. But if you like this video, then please consider subscribing or even watching another one. I have plenty more videos on the Guardians of the Galaxy, but I would personally recommend checking out the video that I did on the strange and all over the place origin of Star-Lord. It's really fascinating. But anyway, I hope you learned at least a little something new, and hopefully, I'll see you next time.
Yeah, sure, why not?
When the Guardians of the Galaxy movie first came out, most people had no idea who they were, and this was totally the case for its main character, Star-Lord, as well.
Who? Star-Lord, man. Legendary outlaw?
What's interesting, though, is that Star-Lord is a character that's been around for a good long time, and his original depiction is completely unrecognizable from the lovable jackass that we know him as today. His origin story is also one of the most convoluted things in all of comic history, with it constantly being retconned and retold without much of an explanation for any of the changes. Like, in the beginning, he was implied to be Space Jesus. Because comics. Hello and welcome to Comic Drake, where I talk about comic books and my name is Drake. Let's talk about it. Star-Lord made his first appearance in Marvel Preview number 4 in 1976, and was created by Steve Englehart, Steve Gann, and Bob McLeod. The character came about when the editor of Marvel Preview came to Englehart with a cool name that he came up with, Star-Lord, and he wanted him to flesh that out into a hero. Conveniently, Englehart had just gotten really into astrology, and getting to use this hyperfixation for a star guy was a dream come true. He said this about coming up with the concept, quote, "My main idea was I wanted a guy who was the biggest asshole in the world, just completely irredeemable." He went on to say, quote, "I did everything I could to make him unlikable. That was my point. I mean, just the name Peter Quill. Both of those names are synonyms for dick." The story was intended to be its own self-contained thing apart from the Marvel Universe, and it started off bold. The book opens up with the birth of Christ, revealing that the Star of Bethlehem was actually formed by an alignment of all the planets in the solar system.
What?
We then cut to the birth of Peter Quill, which was happening during a similar phenomenon. When he was born, Peter's dad flips out over the baby looking nothing like him. So he snatches Peter from his mother, takes him outside, and grabs a hatchet with the intention of killing him. Thankfully, he was stopped by a sudden heart attack. Why? No idea. Maybe it was too much bacon. Who knows? This sequence implied that Peter's birth was something akin to the second coming of Christ, that Peter was born of immaculate conception, and his dad was killed during an act of divine intervention. Years later, aliens showed up and killed Peter's mom. This hardened him, and Quill vowed revenge. While living in an orphanage, Peter studied the stars and enrolled at NASA to become an astronaut. Quill was the most gifted student in his class, scoring top marks in every exam and being able to handle any simulator that he was thrown in. However, he was passed for multiple missions due to his cold personality and inability to be friendly with anyone. After all, astronauts have to share tight quarters in a spaceship with their crewmates, so being able to get along is a must. Quill was outraged by this, but he managed to compose himself just long enough to make it into space. But the rage in his heart never subsided. On this mission, the entire crew received a vision of a being called the Star-Lord. This was accompanied by a voice that was psychically speaking to them, saying that they must pick a member of the crew to assume their destiny, becoming the Star-Lord. What that was, though, was a mystery. A meeting was held to decide whether to comply with the strange being's orders or not, and Peter, seeing this as an opportunity for revenge, eagerly volunteered. But Quill was rejected in favor of another crewmate who had more experience as an astronaut. So Peter beat him up and shot down any of the crewmates that got in his way. Quill fought his way to the spot on the station where the vision of the Star-Lord appeared, was zapped away to a castle, and was greeted by the being who called out to them. A man calling himself the Master of the Sun. Also, he may or may not be God. It's touched on, but we never got a straight answer. The Master gave Quill a suit that granted him the ability to fly, and a pistol called the Element Gun, which, as the name implies, can shoot any of the 4 elements. With this equipment, Peter officially became the Star-Lord, but the Master of the Sun still never said exactly what that was. We later found out that he's a master of languages, of all things mechanical, and of the primal elements of life. Cool. Even though he kind of ascended to being a higher being, Quill was still consumed by the desire to avenge his mother. So the Master of the Sun granted him a vision that allowed him to experience what the fantasy of revenge would feel like, which was enough to satisfy Quill and let him focus on being the Star-Lord. We never actually got to see what came next, though, since Steve Englehart left Marvel after butting heads with members of the staff. Englehart has actually gone on record to explain that his original plans for the Star-Lord series was for Peter to grow a sense of empathy, going from a total jerk to a halfway decent guy at the end of the run. And he would have different themed adventures on each planet of the solar system. Venus would be a love story, Mars would be a war story, etc. Englehart actually went over to Eclipse Comics and wrote the story that he had planned for Mercury, featuring Sundancer, a complete ripoff of Star-Lord. But Eclipse went out of business before that comic could ever be published. Back over at Marvel, they decided to bring back Star-Lord, but the character needed to be changed up. The editorial staff really liked the astrology angle that Englehart had set up, but nobody at the company knew all that much about it, and they felt that if they had just done a couple nights of basic research, then that wouldn't be enough to do the character or the concept of astrology justice. Back then, you couldn't just download an app or call up your witchy friend to tell you what it means that Mercury is in Gatorade or something. I asked my witchy girlfriend what planet was making me feel so sad lately, and she said it was the Earth, which, yeah. If you want to make me feel better, though, then click that subscribe button. It gives me a bit of a dopamine rush, and I could also use it. Anyway, the editor of the magazine also felt uncomfortable with how much of an unlikable jerk that Peter was, so he requested that the character lighten up a little bit. This new direction for Star-Lord leaned a lot more in the direction of sci-fi, and Peter's origin was changed up. Instead of the seemingly immaculate conception of the last book, which also implied that Jesus was the first Star-Lord, Quill was now half alien. On this new adventure, Peter meets Jason, the Emperor of the Spartan Empire, who reveals that he is Quill's father. Years ago, Jason had crash landed on Earth and was saved by Peter's mom, who nursed him back to health, and they fell in love. Jason fixed the ship, and not wanting to put her and their unborn child in danger, he left the planet and erased her memories. Eventually, when the war was going more in their favor, Jason tasked his uncle to go to Earth and collect Peter and his mom. But the uncle, coveting the throne, instead sent mercenaries to kill them. Now that he was reunited with Peter, Jason offered him a place at his side as the heir to the throne. But Quill declined, as he was instead interested in guarding the galaxy as Star-Lord. If you're only familiar with Star-Lord from the movies, then you'll probably notice that this updated origin is a lot more in line with what made it to the big screen. However, even though Peter's origin was changed and modified a lot, as we'll soon be getting into, Ego the Living Planet is not and has never been related to him. They just kind of took Jason from Sparta and switched him out with Ego. But of course, writers couldn't help themselves with messing with Star-Lord's origin. So in 1980, it was revealed that the Master of the Sun is not a magical being, but rather a scientist so advanced that his technology is basically sorcery. Oh, and he's also not a humanoid. He's actually one of the aliens that killed Peter's mom. Kind of seems unnecessary, but okay. The original Star-Lord only appeared in 10 issues, and in that short time, we saw this origin be retconned twice. Marvel seemed to have no idea what to do with this character, and then he just kind of went away. Years later, a new Star-Lord emerged, but it was a totally different person. This is Sinjin Quarrel, who stumbled upon Peter's ship and gear and took them to become the new Star-Lord. There's not really much to say here since this is a video about Peter Quill, but I thought that Sinjin was at least worth a mention since he's a part of Marvel not really knowing what to do with Star-Lord, which is partly why he fell into obscurity. But it's not as if Star-Lord was alone in this. Plenty of other cosmic characters have become underutilized and forgotten about. But that was all changing in the mid-2000s when Marvel decided they really wanted to beef up their space comics once again. Writer Keith Giffen was brought on board to write these books, and had this to say about the characters that he chose. Quote, "I'm not going to use the characters that are being used. I don't want to go through the frustration of having an editor approve it. I did not want to go through that process. So I deliberately looked for characters that were more obscure. And Peter Quill, he just kind of fit the bill." Since Star-Lord was never a part of the mainstream Marvel Comics continuity, Giffen's introduction to Peter was the beginning of the character as we know him today. But it's implied that he had adventures that were similar to the classic 70s stories, complete with a passing mention of the Master of the Sun, who wasn't really brought up again. About a year before the release of the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie, Marvel relaunched the book and gave us an updated version of Quill's origin story. It hit a lot of the same beats as the old-school revision in that Jason, the Emperor of the Spartax Empire, crash lands on Earth, is rescued and tended to by Meredith Quill, they fall in love, Jason repairs the ship, and returns to the war, leaving Meredith behind as to not put her in danger. Not too long later, Meredith gave birth to Peter, and years later, a bunch of aliens called the Badoon came to Earth and killed her, so Peter joined NASA to hunt them down. There were a couple of changes, though. The Master of the Sun was completely done away with, and now Star-Lord is a royal title that Peter holds as the heir to the Spartax Empire. In addition to that, the Element Gun was now the weapon of Jason, which he left behind on Earth. It's all pretty straightforward stuff, and in my opinion, really works for the space cowboy angle that Marvel was putting Quill into. This backstory was elaborated on a few years later, which aimed to make Star-Lord better fit with its depiction in the MCU. The job that Peter got at NASA was as a janitor/mechanic. Yeah, definitely not as heroic as Quill made it out to be before this story. In his downtime, Peter snuck hundreds of hours inside of the flight simulators, but between that and getting into fights with the actual astronauts, he was fired. Now, it's not that unheard of for a disgruntled former employee to take something with them as they're leaving. But Peter hijacked a spaceship, and he unlocked the secrets of its warp drive and straight up left Earth. Until it ran out of fuel and he just drifted.
So yeah, listen, you can replace, primarily you would replace Triggered Machine number 3 with Triggered Machine Crane here to make Patkaiser strong. And it has an elbow there. Arm does what you'd expect it to do, out and in, up and down. But you can also, there's a formation where you use Biker as the left arm instead of the right arm. And then that makes Patkaiser strong Biker, which uses, well, yeah. I believe you can do the same thing with Lupinkaiser over there. So we'll get into that in a minute. But let me get a picture of it. Ugh, I got the hiccups. Apologies for my hiccups. Now let's get a picture of this guy. And these I'll never use. Go like this. I use that to slot it in. So I'll be never doing this, so whatever. And this comes out a little bit, but not a whole lot. Alrighty. Last but not least, drill and blade. And I do see they're emphasizing the blade formation more, but drill is a valid combination. Wow. Door frames. Let's work with this one. E and F. Alright, so this should be quick. Two small ones. They augment the existing vehicles, and that's a ton of stickers there. Alright.
Through space. After floating for days, Peter's ship was found and taken by the Ravagers, a group of space pirates led by a man named Yondu. Quill was able to outsmart the pirates and single-handedly steal their ship, but Yondu was able to escape and nearly kill him. Instead of just begging for his life, Peter pleaded with Yondu to let him join the Ravagers. And in this moment, Yondu saw a little bit of himself in Quill, and recognized that he would be a great pirate one day, which is why he accepted and brought Peter on as the ship's janitor. Fun fact, the vacuum that Quill uses is also called the Star-Lord. One day, Peter mentioned that NASA had reverse engineered an alien ship, which piqued Yondu's interest, and seeing Quill as his ticket to stealing the ship, Yondu allowed Peter to go on adventures and rise up the ranks as a fully fledged pirate. Yondu even found a tracking crystal with the location of the Badoon that killed Peter's mother. All Quill had to do in exchange was betray his old NASA crew and help the Ravagers steal the ship. Now, it's worth noting that in the Guardians of the Galaxy books, Peter was rocking a spacesuit that was modeled after his original one from the 70s. But with no explanation whatsoever, he suddenly had the iconic red coat from the movie. In this updated origin story, though, it was retconned to have been with him ever since he became a fully fledged pirate, but whatever, a little bit of clothing nitpicks that I do on this channel. Quill initially went along with the plan to steal the NASA ship, but because of a combination of guilt and Yondu letting it slip that he only saw Peter as just the janitor, Peter betrayed his fellow pirates and ejected the entire ship's fuel supply and treasure hoard into the vacuum of space. With the day saved, Quill was offered a place back at NASA, even though he was the one that put him in that position in the first place. Regardless, Peter actually had a lot of fun stealing the ship, and decided to try and hack into the space scoundrel as the legendary Star-Lord. That's pretty open and shut, right? Star-Lord's origin has been updated to more closely match the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and it's pretty straightforward. There's no reason to complicate things further and make Peter's origin story any more convoluted. So Marvel did it anyway. In the 2020 run of the Guardians of the Galaxy series, which is a fantastic book by the way, Peter out of nowhere started talking about his origin from the 70s, complete with the Master of the Sun, claiming that they were false memories implanted in his mind. Now, I have read every issue of the Guardians of the Galaxy that has ever been printed, and admittedly, a lot of those books are ones that I read years ago, but even when rereading a bunch of those for this video, I don't remember and never came across a storyline where those memories were implanted. I couldn't just be wrong, and if you have the issue number, then please politely let me know in the comments down below, but yeah, this seemed to come out of nowhere. A few issues later, the book confirmed that the old school storyline is the official origin of Star-Lord, going so far as to show the back and forth of the canon in the opening recap page. This was followed up by a wild adventure where Peter got sucked into an alternate dimension, where he adventured for over a century, got into a polyamorous bisexual relationship with some hot aliens, unlocked the secrets of the element gun, spiritually became one with the universe, and then became a master of the sun himself before returning to his home dimension just a few months after he left. It was actually a lot of fun to read, even if I didn't fully get it. One of the things that I really love about superhero comics is how small details from the past can be brought back and played with in fun and interesting ways. But one of the things that I hate about superhero comics is when things are made complicated and convoluted for no real reason whatsoever. The good news is that nobody needs to know that much about older comics to enjoy new ones, because any good writer will fill in the reader on anything that they need to know to enjoy the current story. Because after all, even if you've been reading a bunch of older comics, then you might have forgotten bits and pieces over the years. But for the more recent Guardians books, the Master of the Sun stuff just kinda came out of left field and wasn't given much explanation. Don't get me wrong, I did say that the book was still really good, and I actually enjoy this new, enlightened version of Star-Lord. But I think that going back and changing the origin just makes the character more unapproachable for new readers. But that is just my 2 cents. But hey, remember how I said that I have read every issue of the Guardians ever made? Well, I have actually made a bunch of videos putting that knowledge to good use. So if you like this, then check out my dedicated playlist for every one of my Guardians videos, like maybe the one that I did for the complete history of Star-Lord. I would really appreciate it. But hey, I hope you learned at least a little something new, and hopefully, I'll see you next time.
Oh, what next? What next?
Nothing succeeds like something that has already succeeded. There's less risk, less effort, and a built-in audience that's ready to take a familiar ride. If you like superhero cat people from space, you're probably going to like superhero bird people from space. Get ready to be serviced because it's the thing you already like in a different package. Hi, I'm Dan Larson, and this is the history of Silverhawks. Covered Silverhawks previously back in 2017, we wanted to revisit it to tell a more comprehensive version of the story, to update the record, and include developments that have occurred since. I can assure you that this is more than just the same thing, but slightly different. Silverhawks is an animated series produced by Rankin Bass Entertainment that ran one season of 65 episodes from September to December of 1986. It is a companion series to Rankin Bass's Thundercats, which began airing 1 year earlier, a second team of alien superheroes to fight the battle for kids' attention. Deep in space, outer space, in a galaxy called Limbo, there exists a prison so large it occupies an entire planet, full of criminals kept in check by an intergalactic team of law enforcement specialists called Silverhawks. Technically, they're a vigilante superhero force, but they are led by a guy who is actually an ex-cop. A long time ago, Commander Stargazer had part of his body cybernetically altered to withstand the rigors of intergalactic space travel. Squishy human guts need to be left behind. Becoming a cyborg is a testament to Stargazer's commitment to find and imprison Monstar, the worst criminal mob boss in all the galaxies. The only mistake Stargazer made after imprisoning Monstar was preventing Monstar from being exposed to the rays of the Moonstar, which allowed Monstar to change from Monstar into Monstar.
Monstar breaks out of the prison planet, sets up a new base spitting distance from the Moonstar, and proceeds to get his old gang back together to take out Stargazer and his orbiting Tower of Justice. Hawkhaven once and for all. Commander Stargazer knows he's getting too old for this shit, so he places an order to Earth for a new batch of Silverhawks. Quicksilver leads the team, assisted by Tallyhawk, a partly metal, partly bird service animal that provides him with the ability to see things beyond the capability of his own senses, sight beyond sight, if you will. Fraternal twins Steel Will and Steel Heart are the muscle and mechanical experts of the group. Bluegrass is the cowboy hat-wearing, electric guitar, laser-shooting pilot of the Silverhawk spaceship, the Mirage. And Copper Kid is the youngest and the smartest and totally incapable of speaking in anything other than whistles and clicks. The future of law enforcement is here, and it's the Silverhawks. In 1980, Ronald Reagan was elected President of the United States. One of the first things he did was appoint Mark Fowler as the chair of the Federal Communications Commission. Together they worked to repeal regulations on children's television enacted during the 1970s to protect kids from direct marketing. What followed was a deluge of morning, afternoon, and weekend programming aimed directly at influencing children's ability to influence their parents' buying habits, a constant stream of 22-minute commercials for toys and other licensed merchandise, with additional commercials for everything from cereal to hamburgers filling in the rest of the space. Rankin Bass, a television producer with work dating back to the 1960s, was already working in the children's television space. They were synonymous with family entertainment, having produced 2 decades worth of stop-motion holiday specials and adaptations of both The Hobbit and Return of the King. Filmation kicked off the era with He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, but before long every animation studio and toy company were fighting for access to kids' eyeballs. G.I. Joe, Transformers, Pac-Man, Mr. T, Voltron, GoBots, Muppet Babies, Inspector Gadget, Rubit the Amazing Cube, Dungeons & Dragons, Rainbow Bright, Turbo Teen, Mighty Orbots, and more. Rankin Bass partnered with writer and creator Ted Wolfe to develop an original series of their own. The result was Thundercats, a syndicated animated series that ran a total of 130 episodes, the first 65 of which aired from September to December of 1985.
Burger King presents Silverhawks meal packs with a Monstar decoder ring, or a Tallyhawk pencil topper, or 2 other Hawkhaven treasures. You can collect them all. Each Silverhawks meal pack is filled with a flame-broiled burger or chicken tenders, a regular order of crispy, golden French fries, and a soft drink. Silverhawks meal packs while supplies last from Burger King.
Thundercats was accompanied by a line of action figures from LJN and a bunch of other licensed merchandise, a success marking its territory in a field already crammed with muscly superheroes and monster-faced villains. With a second season in production, Rankin Bass set out to duplicate that success with a second series, hoping to capitalize on the things that worked for Thundercats: human-animal hybrid superheroes from space, fighting against a cadre of monstrous villains intent on doing crimes, a catchy theme song, a 3-syllable name, and an array of licensed merchandise and toys. This time it was spacefaring science fiction to contrast the fantasy adventures of Thundercats. Actual humans instead of Thunderians, actual Earth instead of Third Earth. Instead of cat-like humans, these heroes were partly metal, partly real humans, and one alien from the planet of the mimes.
You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
The differences were mainly superficial, as the production behind the scenes was practically identical. Peter Lawrence was a script consultant on Thundercats. He was head of development for Silverhawks. Lee Daniker was a supervising producer on both series. Bernard Hoffer composed the music for both. Mike Jermakian designed characters for both. Of the 24 writers on Silverhawks, 17 of them also wrote for Thundercats. Both series were produced by Japanese animation studio Pacific Animation Corporation. The production efficiency didn't stop there. Not only did actors play multiple roles on their respective shows, but 5 actors worked on both shows: Bob McFadden as Commander Stargazer and Steel Will on Silverhawks, Snarf and Slythe on Thundercats. Earl Hammond was Monstar on Silverhawks and Mumra on Thundercats. Larry Kenny was Bluegrass on Silverhawks, Lion-O on Thundercats. Peter Newman was Quicksilver and Tigra. Doug Prees was Molecular and Alluro. The rest of the Silverhawks crew featured Maggie Wheeler as Steelheart and Melodia, and Pete Canarosi as Copper Kid. 65 episodes of Silverhawks ran from September to December December of 1986 alongside 25 new episodes of Thundercats, but that would be it for the Silverhawks. Thundercats would go on to air 2 more seasons of 20 new episodes each, capping its run at 130, twice as many as Silverhawks spread over 3 more years. Like Thundercats, the intent was to push the brand out beyond the television series into licensed merchandise and in particular action figures. While Thundercats toys were produced by LJN, Silverhawks landed with Kenner Toys, who were desperately looking for a line or lines to replace the defunct Star Wars, whose sales were nearly non-existent by 1986. The first wave of Silverhawks toys was released in 1986. Figures prioritized action features over articulation. Each figure came with a companion bird that doubled as a weapon, Quicksilver with Tallyhawk, Monstar with Sky Shadow, Bluegrass with Sideman. Kenner released the core team of 5 Silverhawks, Commander Stargazer, and 2 additional Hawks, Flashback and Hotwing, 4 villains including Monstar and Mumbo Jumbo, the Mirage Starship, and 3 life-size Super Attack Bird versions of Tallyhawk, Sky Shadow, and Stronghold. Wave 2 hit in 1987 and quickly disappeared from shelves as the show was no longer airing new episodes and there was no second season in production. As such, Wave 2 figures are harder to find today and command higher prices. The show passed so quickly that some items that were advertised, like the Hawkhaven playset, never went into production. Silverhawks branding made it onto everything from puzzles to Play-Doh to bed sheets, Halloween costumes, and even pajamas with wings stitched under the armpits, just like the real Silverhawks as seen on TV. Marvel Comics was already home to cartoon and toy-inspired series like Transformers and G.I. Joe. Silverhawks landed at their Star Comics imprint with other toy brands like Care Bears, Ewoks, Madballs, Popples, Strawberry Shortcake, and Thundercats. That's 2 different series. Strawberry Shortcake and Thundercats. Can you imagine? Star Comics published 5 issues before the title was moved to Marvel Comics proper for issues 6 and 7. At least one writer for the show, Steve Perry, also wrote for the comics. If you haven't had a chance to experience Silverhawks in the last 40 years, Warner Home Video released the first 32 episodes on DVD in 2008. Volume 2 followed 3 years later as a manufacturer-on-demand release exclusive to the Warner's online store and Amazon.com. You can also purchase it digitally on various streaming services, including here on YouTube. Unlike Thundercats, Silverhawks never got a shot at a reboot. That said, Monstar did make a very brief cameo during an episode of the 2011 reboot of Thundercats. Unfortunately, any potential Silverhawks spin-off or future appearances were contingent upon the success of Thundercats itself. Check out our video for the story behind that series. In 2021, Super 7 announced that they were producing new Silverhawks as part of their Ultimate series of 7-inch action figures, and that they were the new rights holders of the Silverhawks brand altogether. Shortly after that, Nacelle announced that they were partnering with Super 7 to produce a new Silverhawks animated series, and a second toy manufacturer, Ramen Toys, announced a Quicksilver action figure as well. Over the next 2 years, Super 7 announced 2 additional waves of action figures, while Ramen announced an armored version of Monstar. As of this video, Super 7's Wave 2 has been delivered to customers, Wave 1 is pending, and Wave 3 is at the factory. Ramen has delivered both Quicksilver and Monstar. And then things get muddy. Silverhawks was originally developed by Rankin Bass, who at the time were owned by Telepictures. 3 years later, Telepictures was purchased by Lorimar Productions and merged to create Lorimar Telepictures. In 1989, Lorimar Telepictures was purchased by Warner Brothers, who likely challenged Super 7's ownership of the Silverhawks sometime in the last 2 years, reasserting their rights to the property despite its prior 2 decades of dormancy. What does that mean? As of this video, Super 7's website shows only the previously announced waves of action figures, no update on the Nacelle animated series since the initial announcement in 2021, no word from Warner Brothers regarding an intent to produce anything related to the brand. Like Tiger Sharks, Silverhawks appears to be dead in the water. But if you want something like Silverhawks, check out the Silver Cops storyline running through Season 3 of the Hulu animated series Solar Opposites. Solar Opposites is focused on a family of aliens that crash-landed on Earth. They are from the planet Schlorp, an advanced civilization that sent out 100 ships to colonize new planets just before its destruction. Season 3 introduces an intergalactic police force that utilizes silver skin suits made of an advanced alien technology with built-in defenses, armor, and the ability to fly. The Silver Cops are a direct homage to the Silverhawks, but also a grotesque perversion of the concept, instead portraying a superhero law enforcement team as violent, corrupt, and, I'm just gonna say it, mean and gross. But it may be the closest thing to an actual ongoing Silverhawks series that happens now or in the next 40 years. Because the Silverhawks may be superpowered cyborg space cops, but they can't escape the long shadow of their predecessor. Their fate forever tied to the success or failure of the Thundercats that came before. Thanks for watching. Please hit like, hit subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. Thank you very much to those of you who already are. If you're in the position to help the channel grow, if you would like early access to the videos ad-free, as well as behind-the-scenes features, sneak peeks at upcoming projects, and exclusive monthly podcast about the show, please visit our Patreon at patreon.com/ToyGalaxy and let us know in the comments down below if you were a fan of Silverhawks back in the day. I definitely watched more Silverhawks than Thundercats. Thundercats was always just coming on as I was walking out the door to catch the bus in the morning before school. Silverhawks was on in the afternoon well after I got home. I also had more Silverhawks toys than Thundercats, which I had none of, likely because I'm easily distracted by shiny metal objects. I like birds and space rangers, and they were on super clearance every time I went to the store. That's how you build brand loyalty in a 10-year-old, 3 figures for $10. Actually, that would work today, too.
So tiny. This would probably be better to paint, but I'm committed using stickers only for this build. I might go back later and paint it, I don't know. We'll see. Hope my voice is being picked up just there. Anyway, what I was saying is that these treads are a pain in the ass to sticker, and probably easier to paint them, but I'm not painting them because I'm trying to do just stickers. Well, until next week when I build Ex-Emperor, because I'm going to paint that gold. But we'll see what happens here. These kits are in a weird spot. Okay. Treads. Doing the rim things. What do I want to do next? That's that ride.
There was a monument that was removed, and I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Here's one of the headlines. Ellen's Energy Adventure to close at Walt Disney World. In case you didn't know, it was a ride at Disney World that featured a robot version of me, and the ride was about where energy comes from. #fun. And in part of the ride, the robot, me, fights a dinosaur. #educational.
The Universe of Energy opened to the public on October 1st, 1982 in the corner of Future World as an opening day attraction at Epcot Center. As its name suggests, the pavilion was themed around the importance of energy and energy production. Originally, the pavilion was going to focus on solar energy, and early concepts featured a large parabolic mirror that would concentrate sunlight into a receptacle to harness electricity. However, when the pavilion gained a corporate sponsor, the oil and gas company ExxonMobil, they didn't like this idea, as they wanted to place less emphasis on green energy like solar and more on their own energy. And so the pavilion's design was changed so it would focus more broadly on the various sources of energy, and of course specifically on fossil fuels. Despite the shift towards fossil fuels, the eventual pavilion did maintain some of its solar roots, with the final building being constructed with over 80,000 solar cells covering it, and the roof being designed to face south, with a 30-degree inclination to make the most of the path of the sun in central Florida. The electricity from these solar cells was then used to provide approximately 15% of the energy needed to power the electric ride vehicles at the pavilion's sole attraction, the also named Universe of Energy. In the original attraction, guests entered the pavilion to first watch a short pre-show film about the history of energy harvesting, played on a large multi-paneled screen known as the Kinetic Mosaic. A screen which consisted of 100 rotatable prisms in a 25x4 pattern, which would rotate independently of one another to create pseudo 3D effects. At the end of the film, guests would then walk through a set of doors to be seated in another theatre, where they would watch a further film about the origins of life on Earth and the formation of fossil fuels, after which their theatre seats would rotate 90 degrees to face a curtain, which would then lift into the air to reveal a primeval world. The guests' seats would then move forward into the primeval world, where they would see several animatronic dinosaurs, including an iconic classic Epcot scene of a Stegosaurus fighting an Allosaurus. At the end of their journey through the dinosaur scene, the seats would come to a stop in a second theatre, where they would watch another slightly longer film explaining current and future energy innovations. At the conclusion, the seating area would rotate once again, and guests would move back into the first theatre they originally set off in, where a final animated film would play across multiple screens around them, depicting the various ways in which mankind was benefiting from energy, accompanied by an upbeat 1980s Epcot song at the end of the attraction. Universe of Energy was one of Epcot's original Future World pavilions, and as a result it focused primarily on Epcot's original goal of education. While many of the other opening day attractions did have some excitement to them, aside from the dinosaur scene, this attraction was a very serious, slow journey through back-to-back educational films. And while it was gone before I was born, from everything that I've seen, it looked incredibly boring. I think Universe of Energy was the weakest of the original Future World pavilions, and it really didn't help that the ride was nearly 40 minutes long, meaning that once you walked through those doors, you had committed nearly an hour of your day to learning about the importance of oil production. Simply put, Universe of Energy was also such clear fossil fuel propaganda. Now, I know propaganda is a pretty heavy word to use, and every Epcot attraction that had a sponsor was, I guess, propaganda in some way or another, but with Universe of Energy being presented by Exxon, by the mid-90s the attraction was getting a little tough to justify. And with energy technology accelerating rapidly, the attraction was severely outdated and in desperate need of a refresh. And so in January 1996, with Eisner's Disney decade well underway, and a desire to make Disney World, and especially Epcot, a more exciting place, the Universe of Energy closed for a refurbishment that would see maybe the strangest celebrity collaboration a Disney theme park has ever seen. Well, maybe apart from Superstar Limo, but does that really count?
We've re-energized the Universe of Energy for the 25th with the new Ellen's Energy Adventure. starring Ellen DeGeneres and friends in a fun-filled look at life without energy.
The pavilion would keep the Universe of Energy name, and the new attraction would have a similar energy theme. The ride's layouts and vehicles would remain the same, but with all the videos playing in the various theatres updated. Now, rather than simply being educational, the attraction would also involve a story featuring a celebrity guest. Comedian Ellen DeGeneres. It may seem a bit weird now to think that Ellen DeGeneres was given her own Disney theme park ride, but weirder things did happen in the 90s. And of course, back in 1996, Ellen was the star of a very popular sitcom on Disney's ABC network, and so the attraction became a sort of cross-promotional device. Plus, I mean, Jimmy Fallon's got a ride at Universal Studios now anyway. The new ride within Universe of Energy was named Ellen's Energy Crisis, although almost immediately after opening, this name was changed, presumably due to Exxon not wanting to put their name next to the term Energy Crisis. And so the ride was renamed Ellen's Energy Adventure. So I've been searching everywhere for a reference to this ride as Ellen's Energy Crisis, and so far the only thing that I've found has been that one image. But I decided to look in this book that I have called Since the World Began, which is the 25th anniversary souvenir book from Walt Disney World. The 25th anniversary, of course, being 1996, which was the year that Ellen's opened. And I decided to look in the page for Universe of Energy, which is right here, and you see it's got the old photos of Universe of Energy there. And then here it says, the 1996 version of the Universe of Energy show, for example, has become Ellen's Energy Crisis. So there you go, that's the only reference, apart from that one image, that I found to the old name for this ride. And I found it in a book. The attraction was originally supposed to open in May 1996. But due to delays in the filming of video sequences, was postponed by several months. This delay proved problematic for Disney, however, as around the same time, another Future World pavilion, World of Motion, had also closed in preparation for its conversion to test track. And next door to that, the attraction Horizons was only an intermittent operation due to alleged structural issues in the building. This left only one pavilion, the fairly unpopular Wonders of Life, as the only place open in the entire left side of Future World during the busy summer season. To combat this, Disney decided to temporarily reopen a hastily put together summer 1996 version of Universe of Energy that operated from June 14th to September 2nd of that year, while the ride was partway through its remodeling to Ellen's Energy Adventure. This version was the original 1982 attraction, but with most of the special effects completely switched off, such as the kinetic mosaic being turned off and replaced with a simple screen projection, and many of the effects in the dinosaur scene being inactive. In fact, during the summer of 1996, an Ellen animatronic had already been installed in the dinosaur scene, and so this was quickly covered with some rock work to hide it from view. Although the Elasmosaurus animatronic had already been reprogrammed with Ellen in mind, leading to an awkward moment in the ride where it appears to lunge at the rocks for no particular reason. Finally though, on September 15th, 1996, Ellen's Energy Adventure opened to the public. The ride was a light-hearted, humorous reimagining of the original Universe of Energy attraction, featuring Ellen alongside science educator Bill Nye the Science Guy. The attraction opened once again with the pre-show, but now with the kinetic mosaic replaced by a simpler, multi-panel, ultra-wide projection screen. In the pre-show, Ellen is in her apartment watching an episode of the TV quiz show Jeopardy, when her neighbour Bill Nye the Science Guy enters looking for supplies for a new science experiment. On the episode of Jeopardy, she realizes that one of the contestants is her old college rival, Judy Peterson, played by Jamie Lee Curtis, who now has a PhD in energy. Just energy. Nothing specific. And Ellen laments that energy isn't important. As Bill Nye leaves, Ellen then falls asleep watching the show and dreams that she's on an energy-themed version of Jeopardy, competing against Judy and Albert Einstein. Of course, not knowing anything about energy, she gets all of the questions wrong and falls behind as Judy quickly takes the lead. At the show's commercial break, Bill Nye then shows up to help Ellen learn as much as she can about energy to win the game show. To do that, he says he's going to take her back in time billions of years. At the end of the pre-show, guests then walk into the first theatre from the original Universe of Energy, where they sit down in the theatre cars. Then the second film starts on the screens in front of them, this time showing Ellen and Bill arriving at the very beginning of time to witness the Big Bang, and a sequence plays showing the formation of the universe and the Earth. They then arrive 220 million years in the past, where Bill explains to Ellen the formation of fossil fuels, the way that the bodies of prehistoric animals over millions of years compress to form oil, coal, and natural gas. As dinosaur roars can be heard in the distance, the theatre cars then rotate 90 degrees and a curtain opens, revealing the dinosaur scene from the original attraction, and the cars start moving forward through the scene. The concept of having a theatre show where the seats suddenly move forward to take you into a scene was the coolest part of the universe of energy. And when the pavilion first opened in 1982, was a novel innovation in ride technology. When I first rode Ellen's Energy Adventure when I was really young, it also blew my mind. Because even though when you're an adult it's pretty obvious that the seats will eventually start moving, as a kid I had no idea it was about to happen. The dinosaur scene remains almost identical to the original version of the Universe of Energy, except for the addition of some Ellen animatronics placed among the existing ones, lost in the prehistoric world. The dinosaurs were also repainted in brighter, much more 90s colours, and some additional effects were added to increase guest immersion. The prehistoric world scene lasts 7 minutes, as the ride vehicles slowly move past the numerous audio animatronic dinosaurs. And dinosaur names are always really complicated and sometimes hard to say, but I've got a list here so I'll give it a go. The dinosaurs include an Edaphosaurus, 2 Arthroplura fighting each other, and a family of large Brontosaurus, or maybe Brontosauri, in a swamp, one of which sneezes onto guests as they ride past. Then there's this iconic scene of the Stegosaurus fighting the Allosaurus above guests on a cliff, and below several Trachodon beneath a waterfall. There's several Ornithomimus, or Ornithomimus, I think, drinking from a pond, a Pteranodon near an erupting volcano, and lastly the scene of Ellen near a tidal pool, fighting off an Elasmosaurus with a tree branch. This part of the ride was always really cool, and was definitely the heavy hitter part of the attraction. The area is really well decorated, and the special effects and animatronics make it feel really immersive. I also wonder if this area was originally inspired by the primeval world scene from the Disneyland Railroad in Anaheim, as that also features the same iconic scene of the 2 dinosaurs fighting. After leaving the dinosaur scene, guests then enter the second theatre, where this time they begin by listening to a prehistoric radio broadcast from KNRG News Radio. Then a 14-minute live-action film plays where Bill Nye explains more about the harnessing of energy to Ellen, going from the discovery of fire to the harnessing of wind for sailing ships to electricity and then oil drilling and beyond. The film goes on to discuss the energy sources and developments in technology of today, or of 1996, such as solar energy farms, wind farms, hydroelectric power, nuclear power, and of course fossil fuels, oil, coal, and natural gas. In fact, because the attraction did still have Exxon as a sponsor, it spends most of its time on oil, going over oil drilling and the hunt for more sources of oil. Eventually, Bill Nye and Ellen conclude that there are many sources of energy with no absolute answer on which one to use, and Ellen winds up back at the filming of Jeopardy to try again after the commercial break. Now with her new energy knowledge, Ellen begins storming through the questions, catching up and tying Judy for the lead, heading into the final round. Before they enter into Final Jeopardy, Albert Einstein leaves the show, winning a low-energy light bulb as a prize. Judy and Ellen enter into Final Jeopardy, where their question is, this is the one source of power that will never run out. As the Jeopardy music plays, guests move back into the original theatre room for the conclusion of the attraction. In the final segment, Judy answers that nothing is a never-ending source of power, but Ellen instead answers correctly with, what is brain power? Finally, Ellen wins Jeopardy, and the crew celebrate with her. She then tells guests to look out for dinosaurs, and the attraction ends. Ellen's Energy Adventure was definitely a welcome change to the massively outdated universe of energy. As far as remodels go,
I remember distinctly the thing with, you know, the chat between Bill Nye and Ellen, and the trip to the dinosaur area. I must have been 6 or 7 at the time. I remember it being long. I don't remember the plot. But I said I remember Bill Nye and Ellen. Well, I didn't know who Ellen was. I remember Bill Nye and a lady, who I now know as Ellen, and that trip to the dinosaur area. And it was, I don't know if I was scared. I might have been a bit scared at the time, but I definitely remember going on that.
this one was pretty minor, with the entire layout remaining the same,
and the main draw of the attraction, the dinosaur scene, being almost identical. But it still did a lot to modernize the universe of energy and remove a lot of the heaviness and serious tone that came with the original. Although I think there were still a lot of problems with the attraction. For starters, the ride was more or less the same length as it was before, just shy of 40 minutes. And I haven't been able to confirm this, but I believe that makes it the longest attraction that's ever been at Walt Disney World. Even stage shows like Fantasmic and Festival of the Lion King only last around 30 minutes. And while personally I did actually like the fact that it was a long attraction, as it meant the ride could tell a bigger story than most other theme park attractions, and it made it feel like a sort of immersive television show. For a lot of people, the idea of being trapped, learning about fossil fuels for nearly an hour, made them avoid the ride entirely. I do also think that the Exxon sponsorship did give an odd, underhanded vibe to a lot of the teaching the attraction was trying to do. I watched a ride through the attraction again while researching for this video, and it way too conveniently glosses over the effect of fossil fuels on global warming. And that's not just because it was 1996 either. When Bill Nye is discussing the various sources of energy, he's very careful to offer pros and cons to all of the renewable energies, and describes nuclear power as expensive and controversial. But when he brings up coal, oil and gas, he never criticizes it in the same way, instead focusing on how great it is the size of the operation to find new sources of fossil fuels. In fact, when he brings them up, Ellen even asks directly about global warming, and he simply dismisses it as a hot topic with lots of questions, and then just quickly moves on.
For one thing, it's not sunny enough everywhere. And although the sunshine is free, solar electricity still isn't that cheap. To power a whole city, you need a whole lot of windmills.
And when the wind stops blowing, we'd be left in the dark, wouldn't we?
No way, we just switch to another source of energy. We've already used many of the best sites. And sometimes building a dam can be pretty hard on an ecosystem.
What about global warming?
It's a hot topic with lots of questions. But it's one of the big reasons scientists are working on ways to burn fuels like coal more efficiently than ever.
Lastly, the final problem that faced Ellen's energy adventure was that as time went on, the attraction became dated very quickly. As the ride entered the 21st century, it maintained its ultra 90s look a lot more than other attractions, simply because whenever you put live action segments in a ride, it's going to look dated fast. The whole scene in Ellen's apartment absolutely screams mid-90s, and the obvious allusion to this being sitcom Ellen suddenly felt much older when that show ended in 1998. And of course, because of rapid innovation, all of the information about energy technology became old news almost as soon as the ride opened. For example, Bill Nye tells Ellen that around 10% of the world's energy is renewable, whereas nowadays some estimates put that number up at 30%, although I've also seen some other estimates that put it at 11%, which is incredibly depressing. Exxon ceased sponsorship of the pavilion in 2004, which further confused things, as now a Disney ride was simping for fossil fuels without being paid for it. Despite all of this, the attraction did actually survive well into the 2010s, although during its entire lifespan it was never a big draw of future worlds. For a lot of people, the reason to go on Ellen's Energy Adventure was pretty simple. It was air-conditioned, but after nothing more than a handful of refurbishments to upgrade systems and repaint animatronics, by the mid-2010s, Ellen's Energy Adventure had run its course, and Disney finally looked to replace what had gained a reputation, maybe not wholly deserved, as Epcot's most boring ride. In 2017, it was announced that the Universe of Energy Pavilion would close, as a part of a massive overhaul of Epcot. In its space, the pavilion would be repurposed as a new indoor roller coaster called Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind, and a closure date for Ellen's was set for August 13th, 2017. Despite the attraction being not very popular, news of the closure brought with it a large outpouring of love, with even Ellen herself commenting. And when the day finally arrived, a large group of hardcore Disney fans gathered to ride the attraction one last time. However, in an almost poetic turn of events, as guests entered the dinosaur scene for the final time, the ride cars broke down,
and of course, as you can
the
see,
ride had to be evacuated.
Blade sits on top of scissors like that, and they interact in their way. I should probably reverse that. Alright, so I'll get a picture of first. Oh, this will sandwich both of them. Interesting. So if I were to do this, this would sandwich both like it's not right either. Where did it goes on the detach the whole, okay. That's what I overlooked. Take that whole thing off. And then, okay. Well, that's just cheating. Alright, I don't have anything to do with these, so they're going in the junk. In the junk, whatever. Alright, picture time. Alright, let's show these off properly. So, let's get a picture of everything.
But seeing as it was the last ever time guests would be able to see the attraction, cast members decided to let the guests out into the ride to walk through the scene and get a look at the dinosaur animatronics up close. And with that final send-off, the dinosaurs that had been there since 1982 and Ellen's Energy Adventure closed forever. I hope you've enjoyed my quick look back at the time when Ellen DeGeneres had a theme park attraction. As my last video was so massive in scope, I thought it would be fun to turn my attention to something a bit simpler this time, but I still wanted to cover what I thought was an interesting and underappreciated part of Disney history. I know I've criticised the universe of energy and its take on fossil fuels a lot, but I genuinely did enjoy this attraction. It wasn't an exciting ride, but it was fun in the way that living with the land is fun. Also, to be fair to the attraction, it did try and be fairly even-handed with how it dealt with renewable energy, but I imagine that with an oil and gas company as its sponsor, its hands were tied in many ways. Thanks for watching my video on Ellen's Energy Adventure. If there are any other interesting parts of Disney history you'd like me to cover next, please let me know. If you're new here and you haven't already, please consider subscribing, and as always, I'll see you next time.
And there they all are. So, as I was saying, you can combine Crane with, so since in theory you're supposed to just replace number 3 with Crane, and then you can use the drill as a kind of sort of sword. Flip that out. Try to flip that out. So we go like this. Patkaiser, crane and sword. Patkaiser, crane and drill. Patkaiser, no, sorry, that's Patkaiser Strong is the combination name. Here is Patkaiser Biker. I think I got a picture of that already, did it not? I did. Okay. So I got Biker. Here's Patkaiser Strong. Let's do that. And then you combine them to make Strong Biker. All right, now on the other side of the coin. Trigger machine. Red, blue. Let's see, red, blue, yellow dial fighter. Cyclone Dial Fighter. Scissor and blade dial fighters. Dial fighters are a little bulkier than the trigger machines on average. Not a whole lot. Just my observation here. Okay, combinations. Alright, then Patkaiser combines. Of course, we saw how it combines with Cyclone. I think it's very loose there. So, of course, Cyclone, you replace the arms, the left arm. But then for blade, or for scissors rather, let me get a picture of this. Alright, so Lupinkaiser Knight is formed like this. You take scissor and make it an arm there, and then you turn that up to make a shield, and you put blade in the other arm as a sword. And that is Lupinkaiser Knight. I believe that's the correct orientation of the blade. Yes, it is. Stairs are going to fall over the place. Get a picture of this. And once again, you can combine both. Not sure which one, if any of these talk about it, but you can. I think there's a Cyclone Knight combination, or maybe it's Strong Knight, Biker Knight, I don't remember. Double check what Lupin combinations there are, because I think you can do. So I think they did Biker Knight, not Biker. I think it was Cyclone Knight, which is like in my opinion, taking away the sword makes it less of a knight, but who's counting? Let me double check something here. That's the trains. Patkaiser. Cyclone Knight. Oh, Hammer Knight, right? I don't have the combination. I don't have the hammer. I'm not sure if they made a Minipla hammer. Okay, Cyclone Knight is a thing. Okay, I'm not going crazy. Let's get them together. I think I forgot to show it off. There it is. Put it together real quick. And just have the others floating about. Oh, in that scenario, you're supposed to, that makes sense, reattach blade to the shield. And then there's blue and yellow just floating around, and number 3 and number 2 driving around, vibing. And I believe they use that version, the trains, magic, splash magic. Could have sworn there was a time when they used the biker. Maybe not. Check one more thing here. It's probably still on camera. Good, cool Kaiser, Siren Lupinkaiser. Come on, keep scrolling. Victory Lupinkaiser. Maybe not. Okay, whatever. I mean, you can obviously mix and match them. There was, I believe, an early incident where the Pat Rangers got Cyclone, the Lupin Rangers used Biker. But it's not referenced in these pages. Anyway, I've gone on for quite far too long. I would just like to thank you all very quickly for coming out to my stream or watching this later, however you may be viewing this. I'll be back. I might be back as soon as tomorrow. I don't know. Possibly Tuesday. But I want to go ahead and build X-Emperor, which is the 6th Rangers mecha. It brings together Lupin and Patkaisers. I'll do that before MomoCon, then after MomoCon next week sometime, well, the week after, I guess. I will do the last Lupat set that I have, which is the next set of VS vehicles, which is Trigger Machine Splash, Magic Dial Fighter, Siren Striker, Victory Striker, and Lupin Magnum. So I'll do that next. I'll do X-Emperor next, show off the VSX combination with everything, and then the following build stream will be that, and then after that, I believe my Ninja should have arrived, or Ninja Man should be showing up. So I'll probably do that if I don't do some Gundam stuff, because I bought a Gundam aerial and all the accessories to go with it, and then I also bought a Master Grade Unicorn Gundam, which is one of my... I haven't seen the show, but I love the design, so I'll be doing that. Anyway, thank you all very much for coming out. I have been King Kuga. This has been my stream, and I will see you next time.